Good morning, everyone. We might get started, if that's okay. It's right on 9 o'clock. That clock is a little bit slow. So welcome, everyone, to the Infrastructure, Environment and Compliance Standing Committee meeting. And we have apologies from Mayor Otto. Are there any other apologies? I don't think so. So we'll move on to recognition of traditional owners. So I'd like to acknowledge country and the land where we meet this morning, the Waka Waka land, and acknowledge the elders both past, present and emerging. Do we have any declarations of interest? Councillor Erkins?
I do on item 14, property and facility management, as I own a real estate office in Nanango. I believe I have a conflict. So I will leave the meeting while that matter is discussed.
Thank you, Councillor Erkins. Are there any other conflicts of interest? No. So we'll move on to confirmation of minutes of previous meeting. That is item 5.1 on page 6. So that the minutes of the Infrastructure, Environment and Compliance Standing Committee meeting held on 2nd of August 2023 be received and the recommendations therein be adopted. Do we have a mover? Councillor Potter, seconded Deputy Mayor, Acting Mayor Jones. All those in favour? Against? Carried. So now we move on to item 6.1, Infrastructure, Planning, Works, Construction and Maintenance Portfolio Report. And that's on page 24. So I'll ask Councillor Jones to deliver that report.
Thank you, Chair. And again, happy to deliver the Infrastructure, Planning, Works and Construction, Maintenance, Water, Waste, Plant and Fleet for the month of September. I won't run through it all, but some of the major stuff, the current design and planning projects, we've got some works getting done in for Alford Street in Kingaroy, River Road, Kingaroy Street roundabout. Markwell Street, that's another STIP program that we're detailing the design for the bus interchange, and there's some work going up in Mergen at the moment in Dutton Street and Gore Street around the high school there near the swimming pool that has been successfully paid for through the STIP program, so that's good work. Burt Road, Bowie, Wandai CBD streetscape, again we're trying to get that sorted and get that through for the community of Wandai. That's 20% complete. Tesmans Road, the Ivy to Graham, and Freeman's Lane, Kingaroy and Tingura, Chelmsford, the pavement rehab, that's 5% in completion. Current planned works for August that we would just about have done. We had some work on Denmark Road, Couchlands Road, Williams Street and Toomey Street, Avoca, Gore Street, Mergen and Dutton Street, Mergen. The patrol grading again is going across the whole region, and I must say I've had in recent weeks some very good comments coming back with the work that the men and women are doing out there on that patrol grading and also the major work. So congratulations to them. The bitumen resealing program, Haley Street in Kingaroy, Old Esk Road, Teromeo, River Road, Kingaroy, Runnymede Road at Runnymede. That will all go through this month, so that will be another improvement to our road network. The flood damage restoration works continue on, and they'll go on for a long period, for at least another 12 months, I would think, with the combination of the patrol grading and the maintenance and everything else. The roadside slashing and the boom mowing, again, continually going. Unfortunately, it's slowed down a little bit simply because of the dry weather and the restrictions on machinery and whatnot working in the dry weather, but hopefully a little bit of rain last night may have eased that. Completed works for noting through the month of August. The design and planning projects, Frederick Street in Warrulan is complete. Capital Works, Corndale Road, Lisa Gangs Road, North Street, Kingaroy, Reedy Creek Road. And the list goes on and on and on. And again, anyone watching online or anyone in the community, the media, yeah, you can see all of this stuff on our web page, on the council page. So you can get everything there, all your patrol grading and when you schedule for your road to be done for the next 3 months. Roy Emerson Way, all the councillors went down to Blackbutt the other day to launch Roy Emerson Way, which was a significant milestone for that group that works out of the Roy Emerson Museum. That was fantastic, photos there. And that pretty much brings to a conclusion the presentation of the infrastructure report for the month of September, Chair, and I'd like to move that that be accepted, and again congratulate all the men and women that work here in council, do a wonderful job, so thank you.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Jones. Do we have a seconder to the report? Councillor Erkins. Any questions to Councillor Jones? I just wanted to ask a question through to probably Kevin, I'd say, Manager Searle. I just wanted to ask, I noticed on page 28 that there's work in Hydesville on the unsealed roadworks, Edward Lane, William Street, 10 Chain Road, Main Street, Oberleys Road and Gayndah Hydesville Road. I'm just wondering, has Whelan Street been picked up in that unsealed road network? Because I know that it was a road that wasn't on our network and now it is, because it went through a council meeting, and I'm just getting complaints about Whelan Street. I'm just wondering when their team are out there if they could consider doing something on Whelan Street. If you want to take that as a question on notice or how you want to handle that.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. That's correct. It is Whelan Street is on our register these days, and happy to just check that to see what works are proposed. If, say, for example, if it is patrol grading, we do intend to grade essentially every road, except where it's already in a reasonable condition, and patrol grading may, in some cases, make it worse than the condition that it's in. So there may be some reasoning behind that. But if you're getting complaints from that particular road, then I'll happy to investigate that one.
Thank you. That sounds good. So, are there any other questions? Councillor Erkins.
Through you, Chairperson. Sorry. Firstly, I'd like to thank the staff for the slashing from the golf course onto the highway. I had quite a number of complaints about that, but I've also had quite a number of people rung up and thanked council for doing that. It looks really great coming into town. Secondly, I'd just like to know Mount Stanley Road and Eastern Anango Road, how are they going on the program? And also Bull Camp Road, that whole Eastern Anango area, I'm having a fair few complaints about.
Through you, Chair. So Mount Stanley Road is probably one of the ones where the flood damage work that we have, probably in terms of the restoration of essential public asset portion of funding, may not be enough to do all the work that perhaps we should do, particularly in terms of the betterment, the drainage issues that Mount Stanley Road has. So that's one where we're looking at, well, what do we do to assist in that? So potential complementary works, which is that portion that council's put forward for this financial year, is one that we're looking at, as well as Eastern Anango, but probably Mount Stanley Road is the one where you've got that subsoil moisture coming through. In terms of actually doing work through there, we have undertaken that patch that a couple of weeks ago, which was close. I suppose the patch closest to town, but that's not the complete works. So still have a considerable amount of work to do on Mount Stanley Road.
Through you, Chair, I just wonder, that section on Mount Stanley Road, just after the dip yard that is so bad that had the underground water, is there any chance that we can approach the contractors with those big trucks that were using that? I just wonder, when they went over and it was doing that damage and they continued for quite some time, is there any way that they can contribute to some of that works, because they did contribute to the damage, taking those heavy trucks over that?
I think we would struggle to have any additional funding through that, and that's still ongoing. The logging through there, which also exacerbates.
Yeah.
Exactly
I'm not
what
talking
we're
about the
doing.
logging trucks, I'm talking about the gravel trucks that were going out to fix the road out further, and they were travelling on that road. It was, it was very wet underneath, so when those heavy trucks went over it, it did, as I said, it made worse a problem that were going out there. They
Yeah,
weren't
so-
our trucks, they were the trucks, contractors. Yeah, and that's why I just wondered whether there was any, whether there's any way that we could approach those contractors to see if they could contribute, if not in funds, maybe they could assist in doing some of that work, because it was, they did really make that road a lot worse travelling on it. But anyway, if I can leave that to see whether there is any way that can be looked at. A lot of the residents out there are very concerned about that road, because I do understand that council are keeping a check on it, but I have been out there a number of times, and it does get pretty bad. So we have to really, quite dangerous. I've had people that have had to come into town because they have family members coming up for the weekend, and they're worried about them travelling the road at night. It's still got those sways in it. So
Yeah.
that would be great if that can be.
Yep.
Looked at.
You did highlight an interesting point there, which is our haul roads. So on all of the work that we do, particularly flood damage, to get materials to that site requires a lot of haulage over existing roads, and we are mindful of that. That potentially we do, in some cases, do more damage to some of the haul roads to actually get to the road that we're fixing. So, and that comes back to council, to us, to manage those haul roads. And if we've engaged a contractor, I think it's still council's responsibility for managing any damage that we do associated with the works that are ongoing.
Yeah, I do understand that area on Mount Stanley and East Nanango, there is a lot of underground water there. I know that it was just like a big sponge. I do understand that, but I also understand the frustration of residents who are travelling that road and the issues that have arisen from it. But that's great if council are onto it. And
yeah, and that is one of the roads that we've got listed on complementary works, because we recognise we need to do something a little bit different than just the straight rehabilitation.
okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Erkins. So any further questions? Councillor Shoemaker?
Just have a question. Just in the preparation of the budget, we did a lot of work around talking about our maintenance program. We also talked about the addition of a trial of a couple of rollers on our patrol grading crew. I know the service level review was an operational works, operational plan item that we're going to explore. I guess I was just chasing a bit of an update. We did all that work in the lead up to the budget. I wasn't sure how that work continues, or, if we have more conversations about our service levels, or whether you're doing that as a organisation and then bringing that information back to us.
So is that a question for you, Mr. CEO, or Manager Searle?
Through you, Chair, just in terms of the service level changes for this budget for works, There was the introduction, as you say, the 3 rollers,
Yep.
and that's for us internally to come up with a program and it was for 2 months as a trial, and the what we want to do there is pick the right roads to do a trial on.
Yeah, of course.
The other change in our budget for this year was the major mechanical dig out program.
Yes.
So there was $1 million allocated, and that's still a work in progress. So we need to compile a program which essentially reflects back on what our defect backlog list looks like, and okay, so these are the areas we're going to target. So it is a new program for us, so there is work happening in the background to develop that program, as well as the patrol grading trial.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, thanks for the update. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. So are there any further questions? If not, we'll put that to the vote that Councillor Jones' infrastructure works portfolio report to council be received for information. That was moved by Councillor Jones, seconded by Councillor Erkins. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. So now we're moving on to item 6.2 on page 38, bus shelter structures in Crawford and Cumbia. And the officer's recommendation is that the committee recommend to council that council consider the allocation of $44,000 for 2 bus shelter structures in Crawford and Cumbia in the 2023-24 Capital Works first quarterly budget review. So we might just discuss that before we get someone to move it. So where's that, Manager Searle, would you like to start the discussions?
Thank you, Chair. So we have 2 requests here for bus shelters. One's at Crawford School. It's a new shelter, and we've also got another one which is replacement of an existing shelter. This one we've previously talked to council about, and that's on the intersection of the Bunya Highway and the Bunya Mountains Road. Essentially, the recommendation is to consider these 2 in our first quarter budget review. We've costed up each of the bus shelters. We think that for a budget estimate, $22,000 per shelter is an appropriate budget. In terms of the 2 shelters, so we do have the one at Crawford, which is on Lisa Gangs, just on the edge of the school there. Again, it is a new structure. With the second one, which is on the intersection of Bunya Highway and Bunya Mountains Road, this is an ongoing one where we have a structure there, quite an old structure, and we have had communications with the Department of Main Roads, who have indicated a desire to remove that unless council identifies that as something that's needed. And if that's the case, then it would be up to us to look to either have that structure certified or replaced. And we think a more appropriate position is to have that replaced, because it's going to be probably expensive to get the engineering structural certification done and any additional upgrades to that structure. So hence the reason we're recommending a replacement of that structure.
Thank you.
That's in a nutshell. Yep.
Thank you. Councillor Hinchin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. Just to my fellow councillors to add some information to that. The Crawford bus shelter is one that's been ongoing there with the parents for quite some time. It's actually for the kids there that go to the high school. Currently there's 9 children get on the bus there at the moment, and with the numbers in the Crawford school, that is expected to increase quite substantially over the next coming years. There's nothing there for them at the moment, and it's down Lisa Gangs Road, which is off the side of the Crawford school, where they have to wait for the school bus, and that's on that western side. You know, the parents have said to me and the teachers there, it's a safety thing and a wellbeing thing for the kids that sit there and wait for the bus. So some form of a structure there would be greatly appreciated. In relation to the one out on the Bunya Highway, I know we've been in talks with Main Roads, and certainly I have with our managers here in Chambers today for quite some time over this, and Main Roads stated they wanted nothing to do with it after we went back several times to them about it, but had no problem in us if we as council wanted to do something. That is the gateway not only to the South Burnett, but it's also the gateway up to the Bunya Mountains. And with the amount of, the numbers, I suppose, in relation to the rail trail users and the new bike track that's going up to the Bunya Mountains. I called in there this morning. I go past there and up there quite regularly. Council has a waste facility there. We have a rubbish bin there that we service, or I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's set there on a post and maintained, and that structure was donated to that area by the Apex Club years and years and years ago in Cumbia. They no longer have that in Cumbia anymore, and it's been quite a conversation piece in that that's an important piece of infrastructure to not just that intersection but to the start of the South Burnett. There's our boundaries just to the south of that. In conversations I know with property owners and parents in the tourism industry, and as I stated, Western Downs now has that rail trail, bike trail up there now, which is going to become extremely popular. We know how much that's on the move across our region and across the state. I believe two seriously important things, but I'm happy to take any other councillors' comments on board. There was a conversation had in relation to the second one, if work needs to be done or more work needs to be done there, or if funding perhaps, and I say perhaps, and perhaps Manager Peterson could assist in this shape. It's not necessarily a bus shelter there. It could be a seating arrangement and a table, which is what the structure is at the moment. Can understand Manager Searle to get an engineered certificate for it would be possibly much more attractive if in time the council was to put something nice and new there. That concrete slab, and I just add, to me, and I don't know, I'm no engineer, but it's in immaculate condition. So I would imagine there would be no need for any concrete to be put under that shelter, which would be a saving in itself. So happy to take any other councillors' comments on board and have a conversation.
Thank you, Councillor Henson. I just asked a question, would like to get a question answered. So how urgent is this? And because when I was first elected and we wanted to get a bus shelter at Monjour, we ended up getting the Wandai Lions Club to apply for funding. And so I'm just wondering, is that an option to have one of the, like Kingaroy Lions Club, for example, Councillor Potter, whether they'd be interested in doing a project like that? Because I think it's those sort of projects that Lions clubs and obviously Apex in the past, but Lions clubs might take on board. So just wanted to know about the timelines. Is it urgent or is it just something that we could apply for funding through, work with one of the community groups or something like that?
Probably couldn't comment on the Crawford request, but in terms of the Bunya Highway, Bunya Mountains intersection there, there's no set timeline as such, but there is certainly a desire from Department of Main Roads to either remove that or replace. So there's an expectation that we're going to be moving with that. So if we're going to look for an organisation to seek funding, Lions or Apex or whoever, then I think that's a conversation with Department of Main Roads to say, hey, we are progressing with this.
Thank you. Councillor Potter?
Thank you, Chair. Look, with regards to, I agree to the Crawford State School one, but with regards to the Cumbia one, I do agree with you, Chair, that there could be a community group that might be willing to apply for the funding for that one. And I even think it'd be better if there was a Cumbia I'm sure there's a incorporated group in Cumbria that would actually be able to apply for it. I think they might even have 2 out there. So it'd be great if they could. But with regards to this corner, I know Councillor Henson, you said it's a gateway, but to be quite honest, it never looks good. Like every time I go past that corner, actually doesn't make me feel good at all in that building. So if there's a way, if we're not going to do the shelter right now and we're going to try and work through community groups, I'm just wondering if we can actually at least get the shelter pulled down, because it looks terrible. It really does. So if we could get the shelter pulled down, and I think that would be a really good start, and then get a community group from Cumbria to apply for some funding if there's anything out there.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Just a quick question to you then, or to Councillor Henson or somebody. Wouldn't the shelter be being used currently? So if you pulled it down, then they wouldn't have anywhere to sit with shade. Is that would that be a problem, Councillor Henson?
Yeah, Councillor Duff, it is used. I was there this morning, as I said, and I go past there regularly. It is used regularly. I don't think pulling it down is an option, but I would like to, if I may, perhaps move a procedural motion, to make an alteration here that in this recommendation where point 1 requests and install a new bus shelter in the Crawford State School, we leave that there, and in 2 we leave the Bunya Mountains Cumbria Road structure at the moment as it is, but leave it lay on the table until we have further communications and see whether any organisation in Cumbria can perhaps approach one of these renewable companies or Stanwell for future funding for that.
So just for process, I'm just thinking, is it like rather than I'm not trying to give you your job, but tell you your job, but I'm just thinking, wouldn't we be able to just do amendments on the just do an amendment to the motion rather than a procedural motion?
Yeah, happy to do that.
Sorry,
but I think the second one, if you'd like to, and my fellow colleagues here would like to amend the second one, that we leave that lay on the table for further consultation and see whether there's funding available from renewable groups within the region or any other sources to fund that shelter, but leave that shelter as it is there at the moment until we come to a direction.
Thank you, Councillor Henson. I might just ask the CEO what's your thoughts about how we should handle this going forward?
Thanks, Acting Chair. If there's general agreement, you can do the first one. It's the committee recommends to council. Okay, so the first one would be, it's a little bit of a combination of both. So the committee recommends to council. Council considers the allocation of $22,000 for a bus shelter at Crawford and the capital works. And just leave that one as that, and you can deal with that one. And then the second part, that further report on the Cumbria bus shelter or the Bunya Mountains bus shelter be brought back for alternative funding options.
So we just do 2 separate motions?
I'd just tie them up as 2. So if there's general agreement on Crawford,
just
get it out of the way, and then just bring a report back on Cumbria.
Councillor Erkins?
Yep, I'm happy to second the motion.
So thank you. So Councillor Henson, would you like to move that first
Through you, Madam
line
Chair.
there?
Yeah, pleasure. Happy to move that.
So that's been moved by Councillor Henson and seconded by Councillor Erkins, and the motion is that council consider the allocation of $22,000 for 2 that would be 1 bus shelter, for a bus shelter structure in Crawford in the 23-24 Capital Works first quarterly budget review. So that's been moved and seconded. Do we have any discussion around that?
Just in that motion, it's actually the term of a bus shelter. I would like there to be a little bit of consultation, maybe with Councillor Henson on that, because in my mind, when you talk a bus shelter, you've got a seat that 4 people can sit on with a roof over the top. And I know that Councillor Henson has said there are 9 children that are waiting at the moment for the bus there, and they're thinking that more are going to be waiting. I think there are alternate types of structures, so I would like to maybe have council staff maybe liaise with Councillor pension on a suitable structure. So if that could be an allocation of 22,000 for a suitable structure for those kids. I know I did have, staff did send me some different things, like just a big roof, and I know you can put then the seats down either side. And I think it's pretty important that we don't want to leave kids sitting out on the side of the road if they're waiting to go to the high school from there. So, I mean, I think shade is a big thing, but if you can only fit 4 kids on one bus shelter, that type of thing, I think it's more important that we have something more suitable.
So thank
for
you,
the kids.
Councillor Erkin. So just on that, just a question to Manager Searle. So if we change, you've obviously done a costing on the bus shelter. If would we need to then change it and just put an amount if we're going to not actually like have necessarily that particular bus shelter that you're talking about?
I would probably leave the allocation at $22,000. I think there's different types of shade shelters that and bus shelters for that matter. I'm pretty comfortable with that.
Okay, so if we just wanted to add for a suitable bus, do we want to put suitable shelter structure, or do we want to add suitable bus shelter structure? Just suitable shelter structure in Crawford. So, Councillor Henson, are you happy with that change?
Yeah, I am. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just, and only a comment, that conversation around those people out there, many of them are rural people out there, suggested a 3 metre seat and double-sided, as Councillor Erkins has alluded to, would house certainly nigh on a dozen or more children there if it was back to back. So, that being said, some of the parents have said some days they take their kids into school because they go into school themselves. And I do apologise, I had an email this morning and last night from parents. My computer's wanting me to log onto it, which, as we all know, it sends a code to our phones. And in my haste to leave this morning after the wet weather, my phone's is sitting at home. So I can't log into my computer and give you the details of the emails and the numbers from the parents that gave me that. So I do apologise for that.
Thank
It's
you.
so peaceful without those phones.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Henson. So, Acting Mayor Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just have concerns where we're going with this one, simply because I can remember being in this chamber and we've said no to other proposals for school shelters, and I'll give you an example on the Kingaroy Kuya Road. Not that long ago, they were asked, and they've got just a shabby old thing that they've put up together. And if I could have 2 seconds, I could think of about 30 other options where schools or families, and don't get me wrong, I totally agree, Councillor Erkins has touched on it, the safety of children is paramount, but if the council is going to do this for Crawford, to be consistent and fair right across the region, we've got to take into account every other school that would come to us and ask us. I think there's an option in going to the community organisations like Lions Apex for that one, where I think council would be far more beneficial supporting the one at Cumbia, simply because that's tourism, traffic, and possibly a whole different range of uses that fits in underneath what council does and has done in the past. And I'm happy if everyone, if we all want to go ahead and do this, I'm happy to support it and work with whatever's going on. But I just wanted to raise those concerns simply because we've said no to them in the past. And if we do this one, it's simply based on safety for children at a school bus stop where they're exchanging one bus going onto another bus to get into high school. To be fair to the whole region, you've got to look at them all. So I just want to put that out there and think about that before we go into the process of, and I know it's only asking to have a look at it in the first quarterly budget, so that's all that's being asked here today, and we can review it and decide at the first quarterly budget. But I just wanted to put that out there as a concern of mine. But like I said, safety for the kids is paramount, and I'm happy if the chamber decides that that's what they want to do, I'm happy to follow that and work with that. But just knowing that there will be, I would think, a barrage of other questions coming in.
Councillor Henson.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, through you, and thank you, Acting Mayor Jones. If there's 30 odd you can name, and I'm sure we would all have them, I would like to think that this council would support them in time to come, or help them with applications and grant funding to do them, because the kids are seriously important. So if there's 30 out there, I'm sure this council would look at them when they come across our table. Thank you.
Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question, just wondering how many bus shelters do we know how many we've actually got maintained across the region?
So, Manager Searle, are you able to put a...
Off the top, no, sorry.
And just in terms of maintenance, which department's actually responsible for maintenance of the bus shelter? It is the infrastructure department, yes. I had thought so. Because I have had some, it's been it's an interesting subject across the region, because there are some really old dated bus shelters that do actually need a bit of a clean up and a paint and some attention. And I know that that's a real challenge when we're trying to get across the 1,800 kilometres of sealed network and 1,800 kilometres of unsealed network. So by no means am I having a go. I just, with this one, look, been around the Crawford community. I actually walk out there on the rail trail quite a lot. There are a lot of kids living in that community, and I do know that Lisa Gangs Road is a very busy road. I'm happy to, I don't disagree with the comments made. I'm happy to look at this shelter when we do our first quarterly budget review and see if we are underspent in an area and overspent in another. If there's somewhere, if we can, pull a rabbit out of the hat and make this happen for Crawford. Also very happy to look at what funding options or partnerships there may be for the Crawford shelter. So I'm supportive of, we're just addressing the first motion, Chair, not the Cumbia one.
Yes, we're just addressing the first motion.
Yeah. So in terms of the first motion, I'm very supportive of that. I think, those kids, particularly for the high school buses, they don't run the same routes that the school buses do, so they can end up waiting for quite a period of time. And, in our conditions, it's not so much the rain or the storms, it seems to be the hot conditions that are a real challenge, particularly at the end of a long school day. Yep. So I think it's great that we've got a proposal and that the feedback that's come through Councillor Henshin and the community, can be acted on in the sense that we'll have a good look at this with the first quarterly budget review. So I'm happy to support the motion as it stands, but would like to perhaps, when we look at that service level review, actually have a larger discussion about bus shelters across the region and get a better understanding of how many we own, how do we maintain them, what's our process in that regard. I certainly know in this year's budget we didn't give you any maintenance money for bus shelters, and I'm not really sure whether we ever do really look at this infrastructure. It just sort of sits there until we receive a complaint. So it might be something worth looking at in terms of that bigger maintenance strategy, and how, I know there are so many, how we might be able to chip away at them over time. Mindful of what's possible, not trying to achieve something that's not. So, thank you, Councillor Duff.
So thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Just on that, are you is that something that you can put to get the numbers of bus shelters and a bit of a report back? Is that something that wouldn't be overly problematic? Because maybe we could make that as a question or notice and a report be brought back, or is that something
that's
that would...
fine,
so,
Chair. Yep.
So would you like to see it as a question or notice and just get sort of a bit more feedback on the bus shelter situation?
Yeah, I'm happy for it to come back with the first quarterly review. Like, the crew's got a lot on their plate. It's not a high priority, but I do think in terms of that bigger maintenance strategy and that service level discussion that we're wanting to have, I think it does feed into that. This is infrastructure that council owns or DTMR owns, and we just need to understand exactly what it looks like and how we maintain it and how we make sure that it's still there for kids of today and tomorrow. So yeah, really do appreciate, maybe it's part of the service level discussion or part of the first quarterly review in determining whether this is actually the highest priority bus shelter that we have on our list. I'd like to see us use our project prioritisation, feedback that we get. We're really looking at those systems and processes and trying to make informed decisions. So yeah, I really still appreciate the thought and happy for the crew to take it away as something to come back as part of that report in the first quarterly review.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Is I think that's probably a good way forward, just to have that when you bring back the report on this particular bus shelter, that you talk as part of the report, just a general overview of the bus shelters we've got and the conditions of them. If that's okay,
That's fine.
Thank you.
No problems.
Manager Searle, Councillor Erkins.
Just a little information on some of the research I did. I did contact some of the schools, and I know that some of the schools are actually keen to establish something, but I don't think they're looking for bus shelters outside. They do have a number of kids. Kingaroy Primary School I think have about 100 who catch the bus. Nanango have about 70 who catch the bus, and they actually keep those kids inside their school grounds. Not maybe a cattle crush exactly, but in an area. And I know that those schools are very keen to get something. And I do know that a lot of bus shelters that you think are put up by maybe council, a lot of parents actually put their own bus shelters up for their kids, and as time goes by, those kids leave school, and you know, someone else's kids are leaving, and they do get run down, but they're not actually ever a structure that's been approved, I don't think, by anybody. It's just somebody's dad has made a structure for it. But so on looking at that, when I spoke to the schools, you know, they are very keen. Maybe we can look at what type of funding we can support some of the schools to put up some bus shelters. So what we're doing is offering support. I believe the shelter that we're discussing at the moment is not a shelter inside the school, it's a shelter outside. And one of the concerns that Councillor Henson has raised is not only the sun and the rain and whatever, but it's the safety of the kids and keeping them in an enclosed area, which I think is something different than just, you know, putting a shelter up so the kids can sit in the shade. So the safety, I think, for traffic is probably one of the things that was my understanding was brought through on this. But as I said, I'd like to see whether we can maybe make some inquiries as to what funding, how we can support to get funding to improve the on and off of buses across the region. Thank you.
So just on that, did you we just make a note of that, or how do we get that to happen, CEO Mark? Just a statement? Okay, thank you. So I think we've had enough discussion, unless Councillor Henson, would you like to have your closing remarks? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, sorry, just one other thing, just quickly, sorry, Chair. The recommendation is only asking for us to review it in the first quarter, so that buys us a little bit of time. So I was just talking to James, and through the STIP program and attack and all that sort of stuff, it gives James time. It may fit in a category under that STIP program where we might be able to see that. So that's an option as well. So all we're voting on now is just to review it at the first quarter. In the meantime, James will go back, review that through the TAC. We've got a TAC meeting coming up within the next week, so we can mention it there and have a chat around that. So that's another option to look for funding for these sort of things.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Jones. That sounds very good. Councillor Henson, would you like to just wrap up? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To close, yes, thank you, Acting Mayor Jones. You took the words out of my mouth. I just slid my chair across and made the comment to Councillor Potter in relation to the STIP funding. So, yeah, pretty sure we're all on the same page here to work together for a great result at the end. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's been moved by Councillor Henson and seconded by Councillor Erkins that Council consider the allocation of $22,000 for a suitable shelter structure in Crawford in the 23-24 Capital Works first quarterly budget review. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. So now, Councillor Henson, did you want to address the second point here?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, look, it says there, the report be brought back to the future Standing Committee for replacement of the shelter structure existing within the Department of Transport and Main Roads, reserve at the corner of Bunya Highway and Bunya Mountains Road, Cumbia, taking into consideration alternative funding options and the relevant TMR approvals. I've spoke of this. I don't think I need to add any more. That again is a work in progress. There's plenty other options out there. We may be able to source some funding. Whether they're successful or not, I'd like to think they would be. But yeah, happy to move that motion. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Do we have a second, Councillor Potter? So discussion, Councillor Shoemaker.
Just a question, just with that reserve, I do drive by it regularly on my way up to the Bunyas, and I do agree something really does have to happen with it. It looks very untidy. I think some of it is just general maintenance, and sometimes I think we do a really great job, and other times, you know, it's not a priority. So I don't know whether there's something we can do just in terms of even just mowing that area. Sometimes it's really well done, and sometimes not so much. My question though is more around that area itself. Sorry.
Councillor Shoemaker has the floor. Thank you.
Sorry, I just had a question. That area itself on that corner. So in the report, it says it's a TMR owned, like, is it a TMR owned piece of land? Have I got that right?
Yeah, that's correct, Councillor.
Yeah. So we would maintain that through our RMPC arrangements with them.
We would maintain the area through RMPC. The structure probably not, given that CMR are not accepting that ownership, so that would be a cost through council.
Yeah, and so the structure itself was donated by the Apex Club and is now quite aged and old and needs some attention. I'm just wondering, in terms of the way traffic uses that area, like it's a funny, like there's no real pull off or anything for a bus or for a vehicle. Occasionally I've seen caravans pull up there if they've needed to, or people changing a tyre. I've seen that there as well. Is there any implications, like if we actually make this a bus shelter or a bus stop, is that what we would be doing, or are we just sort of actually just refreshing the infrastructure that's there?
Yep, there has been discussion about the access into that shelter, and the desire is not to have the access onto Bunya Highway. So
yep.
there is discussion with TMR about what that access looks like, which is essentially off the Bunya Mountains road. So
that makes sense.
yeah, so there has been discussion about restricting access on that Bunya Highway.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for the information and for the report. It is genuinely something that I know has been raised with Councillor Henson. I know I've had inquiries from people who live in that area myself, and I've certainly had residents of the Bunya Mountains ask me about it. I do think we do need to do something about it. It is the gateway to the Bunya Mountains, and the Bunya Mountains are a very busy place. So if I think we can put our mind to what a community partnership might look like, and I wasn't sure, is that what will come back in the future report, or yeah, it is probably my only thinking, because I think there could be some wins in that regard.
I think the wording, taking into consideration alternative funding options, would be to work with community groups. I'm thinking would be the intention of the motion.
Great. Thank you.
Councillor Henson.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, look, just Chamber's information. Conversation has been there, and I know with Manager Searle over quite a period of time with this, that as far as the highway is concerned, put some bollards, something similar to that, along there to stop access and make them go up that Bunya Road, so then they can access it in off there, which is 100 times safer. And I know it's been mentioned many times before, but to tidy it up, honestly, would take just one load of gravel there, smooth it out, and because this morning, as I said, I called there, it's showered rain, and there's holes there which have been there since 2022 with water and whatnot. But it's surprisingly highly used, that little area. And it'd be nice to pizzazz it up a little bit with a shelter in time. Be it, there's an old notice board there now that's got some historical stuff on it in a map. I think if, it could be incorporated that promote the Bunya Mountains, the rail, the pushbike rail up there, perhaps the renewable energy sites that are going to happen throughout the region. Something up there would certainly make an improvement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henson. I'm happy to take that. Are you happy to take that as your closing remarks? So we'll go to the vote if that's okay. That a report be brought back to a future standing committee for the replacement of a shelter structure existing within the Department of Transport and Main Roads TMR road reserve at the corner of Bunya Highway and Bunya Mountains Road, Cumbria, taking into consideration alternative funding options and the relevant TMR approvals. Been moved by Councillor Henson, seconded by Councillor Potter. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. So now we're moving on to item 7.1. Petition requesting improvements to Brisbane Street, East Nanango drainage and footpath between Drayton Street and Hospital Terrace. Officer's recommendation. The committee recommends to Council that Council officers scope and add future drainage and footpath works to Council's project list to be considered in future budget deliberations. Manager Searle, would you like to speak to that? Or Manager James Darcy, would you like to speak to that one? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This report is looking to just action a petition received in the previous couple of months, and we just haven't had the opportunity to go through and scope it thoroughly to help provide an accuracy of cost. We are looking to give that energy in the near future and look to add it to Council's project prioritisation tool. That way it's running parallel with all of the other interests in the community and is also measured by the same metrics that are provided to the other considerations for future budget deliberations. Other than that, there's not really a lot to offer other than it's a footpath and drainage request.
Thank you, Manager Darcy. Are there any questions? Does someone would like to move that recommendation? Councillor Erkins and seconded by Acting Mayor Jones. Any further discussion? All those in favour? Manager Darcy, you have your light on. Sorry, Councillor Erkins.
Yep. I'd just like to say on the person who actually organised the petition is deceased, and the issue was for him to get into town, so he won't be the only one that wants to use that. And where council did all that drainage work down there, there is no area for people to walk off the road. And although not a lot of people do walk to the hospital, some people at times do. So that was why the petition was put. The gentleman in question who organised it was actually in a wheelie, motorised vehicle, and there was nowhere for him to be able to come, and drawing attention to the fact that it is up to the hospital. So just to give a little background on the, why it's come about.
Thank you, Councillor Erkins. So we've got the recommendation that council officers scope and add future drainage and footpath works to council's project list to be considered in future budget deliberations. That's been moved by Councillor Erkins, seconded by Councillor Jones. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. So now we're moving on to item 7.2. The committee recommend to council that council nominate Memorembi Barkers Creek Road, Corndale Road, Kingaroy Barkers Creek Road and Cumbria Road for 27-28 TIDS funding as part of the Future Capital Works program. So I'll ask Manager Searle to speak to that.
Thanks, Chair. I might help with this one as well. This is part of the annual process of looking at funding applications for the for TIDS nomination through the state. The RRTG is looking at trying to get projects from all the Wide Bay Burnett councils together for consideration of optimising where the money can go across the LARS network in the Wide Bay Burnett. This is for 27-28, so this is for 4 years' time. This is part of the planning process of how projects are ultimately delivered, but also gives us opportunity to get things ready in advance. Last year, we were successful in getting the top rank for Wide Bay Burnett through doing some good work technically in the background where we had alignment with the gaps in the network and the metrics through the Wide Bay Burnett technical tool that they use, which is similar to our project tool that we also have. What that did was essentially maximise the money that could be made available to any one council in the Wide Bay Burnett, and that was through some of that money going back across to Blackbuck Crow's Nest to make up the residual of 50%, because we were still had a gap at that point in time, and then Kingaroy Barkers Creek Road made up the balance of funding as well there. So that that was part of last year's submission. We're looking at similar submissions this time to try and achieve a similar rank, and this is around looking at there's a balance of money that's needed for Kingaroy Barkers Creek Road, because we only got about 80% of what we needed to do the job last financial year, so we'd like to go back and try and get that residual 20%, but then also look at strong applications that fit the bill of that tool. Given that we know Memrambi Barkers Creek Road got us a high ranking last year, we'd like to go again this year. It's just that it didn't get any money last year, and we'd like to try and get that balance of money put against that particular road, given how high it ranks. So it is a constant battle between where do we get money on the lower order TMR network, because there is a number of roads across the region that have that similar classification to the council higher order roads. So we've got that Memrambi Barkers Creek Road, we've got Corndale Road, and things like Peterson Drive, which all carry high volumes of traffic, but they're somewhat equivalent to the main road's lower order road network. So they provide a similar level of service. It's just the way that the money is made available is probably through this RRTG committee to help upgrade these roads fit for purpose to support how they're used in the area. So this is one that is a constant struggle for all the councils in trying to get the money in the best locations on the network. But given how successful we were last year, I'd look to bring forward a report for council's consideration to allow us to go and proceed next month. Open to discussions, council.
So just I might start. So just on like, I know that Baillie Road is a state control road, and we had funding through this RRTG for it, and so I'm just wondering why that, because it's still, there's a number of pieces of single lanes that I'm getting continuous complaints about why wasn't it finished. So why, like, is that road being considered? Is the Silverleaf Road a Lars Road? Is it a road that could be considered, because it's also lots and lots of people complaining about that one. It's a highly trafficked road. Just wanting to know, I know that you've put forward certain roads, and I read the report and I agree that they're all absolutely vital, but for us to just go, oh well, let's just do those. Is there a list that we could have a look at and just say, well, yep. And what's the timelines around this? Is it urgent, or can we even go out and have a look at these roads, like, and do a bit of a, like we did that other time, get in a bus and have a look, or is it too late for that, or just wanting to know the process?
A few things in relation to, we did do I could probably recirculate a presentation we did in a workshop 18 odd months ago, maybe, could be even a little bit longer. That has the full comprehensive list of council LARs as well as main roads LARs, which would be which would fit into the criteria of what could be submitted. So it is a significant list, and trying to get money across all those roads is difficult, but you're quite correct. Silverleaf Road is one of those roads with the way that functions on our network. Yes, there's certainly a number of potential roads. They just won't all rank the same based on the type of work that needs to be performed against them in order to try and maximise the money in coming back to council. So it is around wanting to find that balance point on money versus roads in the region. If we're happy to nominate a road that isn't going to probably rank as high and be prepared to accept a lesser value of money, that is certainly an opportunity. But at the same time, we've got to try and find a balance point here on what's acceptable to council. And in the interest of time here is also, we've probably got about 4 weeks to submit things to the Wide Bay Burnett RRTG Tech Committee. So we are looking to try and facilitate that moving forward. We're happy to take any further questions around any of the roads that you would like considered if you're not happy with any of the proposed roads that we've put forward. But at the same time, we could put other roads on. It just may not change. It may not actually increase council's position in being able to attain any further money through that group. But yeah, it is a bit of a technical process that it goes through. It does have some due diligence, but yeah, we're trying to help elevate our council's position in how we rank compared to other councils in the group.
So yeah, so and I 100% understand that. It just it would be remiss of me not to as Division 5 representative not to flag those roads, particularly the Baillie Road, where it's a highly trafficked school bus route, and just like I can see the rationale behind these other roads. I just wanted to get my head around what you're doing. So you're thinking that because you have this group, that these roads are the most likely to get traction at this point because of their, just their ranking, and that's why you've come up with this. And that rather than say, for example, the Bayou Road, if you put it in there, it could reduce your chances. I know the Bayou Road is, because it's a state control road, we wouldn't have to contribute any money towards it, whereas if some of these roads we would. So yeah, just wanting to.
You're absolutely right, Chair. With the state control roads, they consume 100% of the available subsidy. So the remaining 20% for Kingaroy Barkers Creek, that would take a percentage of that just to finish that particular project. But Bayou Road would be the same as well, in the fact that every dollar of subsidy would need to be 100%. So it actually consumes a far greater portion of what we can actually access through that group. Whereas with the council roads, we're required to, under the policy, to contribute up to 50% or greater, because main roads only have to contribute up to 50%. So it is around making use of that subsidy, being considerate of whether it's a council road or a main road, and then being able to understand what does a project look like based on who looks after it, and how does it actually fit the needs of use out there as well. So it is certainly a challenge, and open to other councils' thoughts on this as well.
So any other councillors like to make some comments or ask some questions? Councillor Erkins.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. I do know that the Kingaroy Barkers Creek Road, that there's a resident from Wattle Camp Road have organised a petition that they have spoken to local member Deb Frecklington, and she's supporting their petition to do something on that road. I don't know whether that actually helps us and gets things further advanced for us or not.
Councillor Potter.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a question, please. Does this ever include intersections off main roads and things like that? Because I know I've been discussing the Weeks Road intersection on the Kingaroy Road for quite some time, because if you're stopping to turn off right to go into Weeks Road, because it's on a bend, it's actually quite a dangerous turn. And I'm just wondering, and you can't actually go around a vehicle if they're stopped there and all of a sudden you realise you're there, because there's a drop-off and there's a sign. So I know there's a few vehicles that have gone past there and lost their mirrors because they got a bit of a shock. So I'm just wondering whether this would include, whether we're ever able to include the widening of intersections on a main road with this ever.
Through you, Chair, there is an interest around being able to do intersections, but it is very prescriptive on which main roads it can be applied to. With Kingaroy Road, it's actually a state-controlled road, but it's not a TMR LARS road. It's like an elevation of classification above that, because of the role and the function. We do have a few of these types of roads in the region, like Mundubra Geelong. We've got Wandai Chinchilla, which are main roads, but they're not highways. So it sort of fits into that middle classification with that intersection that you raised. But if it was on a Lars road at that lower order and it was an intersection, yes, it would be relevant and would meet the criteria. Something like this intersection, I think we'd need to find a parallel avenue to see how that could be achieved.
Councillor Potter?
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether this is something you could take to your traffic advisory committee. I don't know whether it sits under that, but, you know, I've had the residents of Weeks Road on me literally since I first got in, and nothing has happened at all. So I'd really love to see something like this taken to your TAC at least. Thanks.
Yeah, through your chair, you're happy to take that to the TAC, Councillor Potter.
I'm not sure who had that light on first. Councillor Erkins.
On my comments before about the petition, it was actually a question. Is that any assistance to us, the fact that those residents have sending in a petition, does that help us in any way to do that?
Manager Darcy.
Through you, Chair, because Kingroy Barkers Creek has existing funding against one section, I might draw your attention to figure 3 in the attachments, which is on page 45. There is a light blue colour, which is the section that's been targeted. It's the one just to the east of Wattle Camp Road, that first single lane section. So that is looking to be targeted for funding commencing in 26-27, and we're looking to try and find residual funding out of 27-28 to help complete that link, because it's about 900 odd metres long, and this residual funding will help complete that single lane section between the two curves that are at either end of it. So it'll help provide a uniform 2-lane level of service through that particular section. So the petition is nice. We still have 2 other single lane sections, but where we're going with one particular section, there's already a strategy around how to achieve funding to get that delivered.
So I didn't really completely understand what you said. So the funding is to make the single lane into double lane. It's one of the, there are three sections of single lane on the road. So the funding is to make one section of that single lane into double.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, the westernmost one, one back towards the Wattle Camp refuse station.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you. I'm happy to support the motion, Chair, the recommendation before us.
Would you like to move that one?
Yes, I'd like
Okay,
to.
so Councillor Shoemaker has moved that. Someone to second that? Councillor Potter. Do we want any further discussion? I think we've...
Yes,
Would you like to... yes, okay. You'd like to
that
speak?
motion.
Thank you.
I just want to congratulate the team on the work that's been done, and certainly, you know, Councillor Jones is the chair of RRTG, and I know James and everyone involved puts a lot of work in preparing the applications for these roads, and it's a long-term planning process, and really do appreciate the work that goes in the back end, because I understand it's a lot of time and effort for something that we won't see for a number of years ahead, but it's very important that that work is done, so thank you. And I think the fact that you've been acknowledged as one of the most successful councils in the Wide Bay Burnett in actually achieving and leveraging this funding to get really great outcomes, whether we combine that with council funding or not, is a really wonderful thing. So thank you for your efforts, genuinely.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Much appreciated.
I am really supportive of nominating these roads for the 27-28. I've actually seen the statement of intent for Kingroy Barkers Creek Road and have been very lucky to have James run me through that. That is a significant economic driver for our region, that road. It's very important in terms of the safety of residents in that area, and I really do hope to see, you know, I think it's wonderful that we've had some commitments for 26, 27. It would be fabulous to see more commitments for 27, 28. I just wanted to sum up, I think it has to be noted as well on page 41. Clearly, the work that you're doing with the Department of Transport and Main Roads and the conversations you're having through QRA with the disaster recovery funding, some of our calls are actually being heard, and it's really impressive to see the funding that will be underway on the state network in addition to the TIDS funding that's been announced. There are some significant projects there that I know we as a council have discussed for a long time during this term, but also for the terms previous to this term. So just wanted to acknowledge it's really impressive to see those key roads being invested in, both by the Australian government but also by the state government. And we do know that that will see some significant benefits on the ground. So thank you to the team for the work that you've done, fully supportive of your strategy for the 27-28 funding, and have my fingers and toes crossed that we may actually be successful.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Any other discussion? So I'd just like to say that I agree with what Councillor Shoemaker has said. It's a good report. I have confidence in the team that you've put together, that you've done the best you can, that you've given due consideration to those roads that I have flagged, and that you've obviously been successful with Bayou Road in the past, and you've put together it is recommended to consolidate our submission to focus on both council network needs and TMR upgrade needs, which would provide a high-quality proposal, maximising council's ability to acquire a greater portion of funding for our region. So it's a very technical way that you've come up with this, these particular roads. So I don't want to, just say, let's go left field and do Silverleaf or something like that. And obviously the timelines are short, so I'm happy to support this. So any other comments? Did you want to write a reply? Okay, so it's been moved by Councillor Shoemaker, seconded by Councillor Potter, that council nominate Memorandum Barkers Creek Road, Corndale Road, Kingaroy Barkers Creek Road and Cumbria Road for 27-28 TIDS funding as part of the Future Capital Works program. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. So would someone like to move, Councillor Henson, that we adjourn for morning tea? Someone second that? Councillor Erkins. All those in favour? Against? Carried. We'll come back at 10:30. Thank you. Okay, so welcome back, everyone. So we're moving on to item 8.1, Water and Wastewater Portfolio Report. Sorry, I'm jumping the gun. So we've got Councillor Henson has moved that the meeting be that we resume the meeting, and I'll second that. So all those in favour? Against? Carried. So now we're moving on to 8.1, Water and Wastewater Portfolio Report. So it's Councillor Jones. So do we want to just take it as tabled? So Councillor Potter has moved that we received a report. Someone to second that? You can't second that too. We need someone to second that. Councillor Erkins. So do we have any discussion around the report, the Water and Wastewater Portfolio Report? Councillor Potter?
Yeah, look, I just want to bring to everyone's attention where the dam levels are, because they're actually dropping quite well. So, which is not good considering the seasons we're coming up to. So, yeah, so because we've got Manduma Dam on what, was that 80% and BP on 84, was it? Yeah, so I just want to bring everyone to, bring that to everyone's attention.
So, Manager Darcy, we've still got the water restrictions. They haven't changed since we had the floods, and now we've got the drought. So that's still all the same.
Through Chair, no change.
No change. So that's are you happy with that, Councillor Potter? Like that's just so obviously with the drought and the fact that it's going to start to get very hot, we're going to lose a lot of water with just evaporation. So that's an ongoing issue for us in this region. Councillor Henson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a comment, and I know I bang on about these dam levels, but one comment I will continue to say in this chamber is, in the event of renewables happening in our region, the water consumption, and no one can tell me exactly where they're going to get the water for the development's going to happen. So I urge Council to keep an eye on that, because they're going to have to source water from somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henson. Any other questions, comments? If not, we'll move on. So we'll go. We've got Councillor Danita Potter has moved, and Councillor Erkins has seconded. The Water and Wastewater Portfolio Report be received. All those in favour? Against? Carried. So now we move on to item 9.1. Natural Resource Management Compliance and Environmental Health Portfolio Report. I'll ask Councillor Henson to present his report. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, fellow councillors and members of the public. I bring this report on natural resource management, rural services and agricultural innovation, compliance and environmental health to you today. In the Natural Resource Management, Council was represented at the quarterly Biosecurity Advisory Committee meeting hosted by Toowoomba Regional Council. The Darling Downs Moreton Rabbit Board spoke about the 555-kilometre rabbit-proof fence and how it was still working effectively to control rabbits. The board was still experiencing very small instances of people bringing in and keeping rabbits as pets, and I'm sure many are aware that there's a considerable fine for that. Weed management, K&S Contracting have been treating mother of millions, but will transition to green cestrum in line with each invasive plant cycle. And Scotch thistle now being reported. However, an action plan is yet to be developed at the time of writing. And I would suggest, even though we had a shower of rain last night, many things would be struggling under the current conditions. In the feral animal management, Council was represented at the Bunya Mountains Dingo Management Plan stakeholder meeting hosted by the Bunya People's Aboriginal Corporation, and representatives from state and local government along with public and community organisations voicing their opinions regarding clarifications and definitions between dingoes and wild dogs. At the time of writing this update, 71 landowners have registered for the upcoming wild dog and feral pig control program, and this includes 5 new landowners. And the program runs from the 1st to the 8th of September 2021, and I've made comment in the chambers before, it's good to see that our staff working together with neighbouring councils, that we're incorporating this in conjunction with them. So that's been planned and working out quite well. I've seen signs in the Western Downs and in the North Burnett, and I believe we're working with our counterparts in our eastern side as well. In the Flying Fox Roost Management Grants Program, a roost management plan including a response plan is being developed for the Flying Fox Roost at Blackbutt. The Local Government Flying Fox Management Grants Program is currently open and officers are preparing an application for funding. In compliance, a submission has been submitted to the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries on the proposed Stronger Dog Laws discussion paper. And in environmental health, Council was represented at the Mary Burnett Vector Management Group meeting hosted by Gympie Regional Council on Tuesday, the 8th of August 2023. Monitoring and surveillance of Japanese encephalitis virus continues since the first detected in Queensland in early 2022, and there's current outbreak of malaria in the Torres Strait Islands with 81 confirmed cases for the 22 and 23 period, and I know Councillor Potter, you watched this intently. Council has had the opportunity to send 2 environmental health officers to the Queensland Health Mosquito Training Course in July. And this was funded by the Queensland Health Communicable Disease Branch to upskill local government and other authorised officers in Queensland to be able to continue surveillance mosquito-borne disease vectors, control programs and to respond in the event of disease outbreaks, for example, Japanese encephalitis response. This is vital to ensure that councils have officers trained to be able to provide advice and respond on the ground in our communities. And environmental health officers attending the Darling Downs Southwest Environmental Health Queensland Regional Group meeting. 2 presentations based on work being undertaken in our region were well received. And the presentations include sticky business and working with Queensland Health on licensing honey producers and scouting food safety. A display on a scout camp kitchen was provided, and a submission to the State Health Department in regards to the review of the asbestos legislation for do-it-yourself homeowners was completed, and the proposed changes may affect council significantly if further regulatory items are developed to local governments to enforce further provisions to persons undertaking works involving asbestos-related material. An important space to watch that in the upcoming future presentations. So with that, Madam Chair, I'd like to table my Natural Resource Management, Rural Services, Agricultural Innovation, Compliance and Environmental Health Report be accepted.
Thank you, Councillor Henson. Would someone like to second that? Councillor Potter. Any questions, comments? So I'd just like to ask the question about you at the Bunya Mountains Dingo Management Plan stakeholder meeting. There was voiced opinions about the clarification between dingoes and wild dogs. Was there an outcome with regards to that? What was the concerns there?
Through you, Madam Chair, I wasn't at the meeting, but I can certainly take that away and talk to the officers that were present and provide an update to councillors.
So I know I'm always very careful to call the feral dogs or wild dogs because they are they're not pure dingoes, but just wondering.
Madam Chair, that's a conversation that will be an everlasting one because there's many people in the wild dog space and certainly up in the likes of the Bunya Mountains, as much as many dogs appear to be wild dogs or feral dogs, there's a lot of claims out there stating that they're actually dingoes. So you don't have to have a dog that doesn't look like a dingo. That's not a dingo like that. And I know in the media just recently there was quite a strong on both sides about the relocation of dingoes from Gagari. We go to the Bunya Mountains community meeting up there quite regularly, and they're an issue up there. The dingoes are becoming an issue up there. I hope I'm wrong. We've done all we can and work with the national parks up there, and if they have a problem with them, they try and catch it and relocate it. I hope I'm wrong, but it's again the education of people and tourism up there. Rather than get a photo of one on their front veranda and want to feed it, to keep right away from them and not encourage them to do so, because they're having problems up there now with just that happening. But I'm getting off subject there, Madam Chair, but yeah, interesting space.
Thank you, Councillor Henson. Any other comments, discussion around the report? No, so we've had the report moved by Councillor Henson, seconded by Councillor Potter. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Just noting, obviously, that Acting Mayor Jones has left the room, and also the CEO has had to go out the front to deal with a matter. So we'll move on now to Natural Resource Management Compliance and Environmental Health Operational Update. The recommendation is that Natural Resource Management Compliance and Environmental Health Operation Update be received for information. Did we want someone, Manager Darryl, did you want to talk about that? You're actually the General Manager now, sorry. General Manager Darryl, would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, so this is just our stock standard monthly update just on the activities of the various teams. So we've got the monthly stats there with comparisons to previous months and previous periods for previous years. So happy to take any questions on any of the information that's provided in that report.
So are there any questions to General Manager Darryl? Councillor Henson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, thank you, Manager Brooks. I know you've answered this. We've had this conversation before, but just for the public and the chambers to know, we supply dog-on baits and certainly injected meat for pig and dog. I was asked the question of whether any pig-gone baits were available free of charge to landowners, and at present they're not available, which is disappointing, but correct me if I'm wrong, Manager Brooks, but Council will continue to try and find funding in that space if that's ever possible. But just so people are aware, there are many primary producers out there that are being very diligent. I know the gentleman, or one gentleman in question who has had the conversation with me, has worked very, very hard and diligently with he himself paying for the pig-gone baits, and has spent in excess of $1,000 already to eradicate pigs on his property, and it's not far out of our local towns and villages. So it's great to see that happening, but it'd be great to also get some support for the primary producers out there, because they are a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henson. Any other comments, questions? No, we'll go to someone to move that report, the update of the Natural Resource Management. Councillor Shoemaker, did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, happy to second it.
So, Councillor Henson, you're going to move it. And Councillor Shoemaker, did you want to question Councillor Shoemaker?
I just wanted to thank and acknowledge Kerry Hayes and his team. I have actually got to go pick up some baits for my properties on Friday morning. Just really impressed at the level of communication that I've received as a landholder from Kerry about the baiting program underway, and the support and the information. It's really been quite amazing. I now have such a better understanding of the process having gone through it, and I really do, it's great to see over 70 local landholders participating in that program. Really do wish we had have seen a whole lot more, when we were starting to talk about some of the biosecurity risks. This was an enormous, something that we heard loud and clear from local landholders was pig and wild dog management is really important to ensuring these biosecurity risks are kept in hand. I think the team have done a massive amount of work. There's been an enormous number of campaigns and discussions and information available, and there really is no reason for landholders in the region not to participate in those programs. The information and support is there, and just encourage anybody who would like to get on board for the next program to really reach out, because only together can we actually help really make a difference in our region, only if everyone steps up and does the right things. So really do appreciate Kerry and his team. They've done an enormous amount of work, and just wanted to call that out. They've really done their best in trying to equip landholders with the information they need to conduct successful baiting programs across the region.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. And it has improved also over the years now with us providing the meat, Council providing the meat, which it takes a lot of the challenge away from landholders having to try and source, particularly with the cost of meat, to try and find something that's cheap enough to warrant putting 1080 bait in it. But just on for us, the issue why some people wouldn't participate is that people muster with dogs, and we actually put baits out, and because we haven't had enough rain, you need actually 2 inches of rain to make sure that the baits are not still active. We haven't had that, so we're actually not participating in this because we're going to do a big muster right now and remove weaners and things, and it's too risky for us. So that anyone that is not participating would be probably around that reason, because they're trying to muster with dogs. Some people don't use dogs, but we certainly do. So, yeah, that would be Councillor Henson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, look, and I just want to stipulate to the public out there, there's often some bad press. This is a seriously controlled and regulated program that we run. And as Councillor Shoemaker's alluded to, the staff do a wonderful job. Gary Hayes and his team there, and all the others behind the officers here do a wonderful team. This is regulated. You go on and register. There's proper ways and means, and if you've got bait, Councillor Duff would suggest you do your best to try and pick them up. I know they disappear, but there's also muzzles available for your dogs. You can put a muzzle on your dog. It's very safe, and it's got a head strap around it that will stop your dogs from picking up baits. I know that mightn't be ideal in some circumstances for work dogs if you've got to get them to manhandle a beast a little bit. But there's the traps for these dog-borne and hog-borne baits are fantastic things. Innovative traps that council has one we supply. It's out, was out. But yeah, it's a controlled environment, and I encourage people to get on board. It's safe. If done diligently and properly, it is extremely safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henson. Any other comments around the report? So we've had Councillor Henson has moved, and Councillor Shoemaker has seconded that the Natural Resource Management Compliance and Environmental Health Operational Update be received for information. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Just note that Acting Mayor Jones has returned, and also we have our CEO back. Thank you. So now we're moving on to item 10.1, Local Disaster Management Portfolio Report. So I'll ask Councillor Potter to present her Local Disaster Management Portfolio Report. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I'd just like to let everyone know that through the local disaster management, Donna, our officer, has actually been out to a lot of the different smaller schools to do the pillowcase project with Red Cross, which is a project of resilience for the kids to learn. We also had that at under 8 days, so it is a really good project for the kids to be involved in. I also attended Carinya Residential to do their handover for their aged care health facility check on Thursday the 31st of August, which was quite exciting for me to go and see what Carinya has there with their new equipment and everything like that. And I attended with Fireys and the Ambos there. With regards to the council's, so Donna attended the Maryborough Fire Season Workshop on the 2nd of August this year, and also emergency service visits with the other aged care facilities have been very successful. So, and as I said before, this is a great opportunity for everyone to familiarise themselves and meet and greet the aged care sectors with the emergency services, because it's not something they'd normally do. They wouldn't normally see all the ambos and fireys up there at one stage, but if there's an emergency and something needs to happen there, then it's a really good way for the fireys and the ambos to know exactly the layout of the nursing home and, you know, where their emergency power is and how that all works, so which has actually been extremely useful for all the different groups. And the Local Disaster Management Group meeting is scheduled tomorrow, the 7th of September, and before that we're actually QFES have arranged to tour the Incident Control Centre in Youngman Street prior to the meeting. And after the LDMG, our Disaster Management Officer and Emergency Management Coordinator and Local Disaster Coordinator are meeting with representatives from Stanwell to discuss their emergency action plan. And on Friday the 8th of September, the Bunyan Mountains Disaster Management Subgroup will meet for their quarterly meeting. I'd like to move that my Local Disaster Management Report be accepted. Thank you.
Could I have a seconder,
like
please? Thank you, Councillor Potter. Seconded by Councillor Henson. Any discussion, any wanting to make a comment around? No questions to Councillor Potter? So we will put the report. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. So now we're moving on to the Waste and Recycling Management Portfolio Report, item 11.1. Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So July saw 128,699 plus a couple of cents returned to the state government as part of the domestic waste to landfill prepayment, which is received from the state government for the waste levy. For the 23-24 council received 1.365 692 for or 113,807 per month from the state government to offset the cost of domestic waste landfill. The waste collection contract, so on Wednesday, Wednesday the 19th, JJ's Waste and Recycling are awarded the next curbside contract, which will begin on the 1st of July next year. And also supervision of landfill management contracts. The tender documents have been released to the market on the 11th of August for both landfill operations contracts and the operations and supervision contract for landfill supervised transfer station sites. And this is all part of the process to update the site-based management plans, training plans and procedural changes that have been produced to help to ensure a smooth transition for all parties and ensure compliance is met with Department of Environment and Science and workplace health and safety requirements. The commercial waste will be now accepted at the Blackbutt transfer station as of the 1st of September. The waste will now be collected in specified bins under the direction of the site operator to ensure council's waste levy liabilities are not impacted. So details of usage will be presented to council for review in February 24. So actually I'm looking forward to hearing about that one. Thank you, GM Darryl. That will be good. The Nango Weybridge installation and transfer station upgrade. There's been a site inspection done, conducted on Wednesday the 13th by ATC Engineering, and proposed plans for the Weybridge and transfer station are expected to be received during September, with the tender documents being drawn up and released to the market. And the Wandai Weybridge installation and transfer station upgrade. On the 10th of August, Council was advised of the success of achieving funding through round 3 of the local government levy ready grant program to install a weighbridge at the Wandai facility. The subsidy is for 62.5% or up to $368,973.75 towards eligible project costs. The funding agreement documents are being executed. Recycling. So figures from the Cherbourg Material Recovery Facility for the month of July show that 77.34 tonne of recycling was received. And out of that, there was 57.34 tonne of material that was recovered. Contamination delivered with recyclable materials was 20 tonne. And I think it would be interesting for us to see whether that has, I'll take that as a question on notice, Manager Darryl, to see whether that's actually improved from say this time last, since it's first started. So that would be quite interesting to find out.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I think probably how we'll present this data going forward is in a graph. So, and obviously it's only been going since January, so we don't have a great deal of data to compare with. But yeah, that's how I think we intend to report on this going forward.
Thank you very much. That'd be really good to know. So the breakdown of materials recovered are cardboard, 40.163 tonne, paper, 12.177 tonne, plastics in total of 7.6 tonne, aluminium 0.784 tonne, steel is 1.265 tonne, scrap steel 1.086 tonne, and glass 8.045 tonne. And I'd like to move that my report be accepted. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Someone to second that? Councillor Henson. Just a couple of good news stories in that was the commercial waste being accepted at Blackbutt and also the getting the funding for the Wando Ray Bridge. That's at least 62.5%. That's very, very good. So I know that when we went to Cherbourg to the MRF that they were like, we were doing better than Gympie and everywhere with our, we had, they were ticking the box and saying that Southborough has done well. So I'm hoping that we're actually improving and not getting deteriorating. So it'd be interesting to see those figures in that report. Thank you. Councillor Shoemaker. Oh, sorry, was that, did you have your lot on first or?
Yeah, I was just...
Sorry.
Sorry, just as an added to my report, I just wanted people to take note of the photos that are attached. So these are of the different places across the South Burnett that we look after. And if you take a look, it's not very good. They're not very good. So we really do, we have to start looking at this quite seriously now with regards to our dumping.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you. I just wanted to, reading over this report, Manager Darrow, I would understand if your team were tired. Because my gosh, you've shelled out some work. I cannot believe. Just want to acknowledge the amount of work that actually has gone into that renewal of the waste contract with JJ Richards. That's an enormous, that's possibly the biggest contract that council signs, if I'm right in understanding that. It's right up there. And, you know, I just want to really acknowledge the team for the work that's been done there. Also, yeah, wonderful to see that some of those funding applications and things that we've talked about for some time are starting to pay dividends, and it's great to see, you know, that saving of $368,000 on the Wando Way Bridge will actually help us invest ratepayer funds in that waste levy in other ways. So that's a really giant win. Well done. And it also just having more accurate recording and reporting of how much waste is actually being delivered. It's my understanding that that could be delivered and put into landfill, that could also pay dividends for council into the future. Hopefully it's less and not more, by all means. Just with that waste levy payment, it's very concerning that we are so early on in the financial year, and it's clear that there is going to be a shortfall in that waste levy payment used to offset the costs of landfilling waste. I think by all means what we're doing with the Cherbourg MRF is fabulous, and can only hope that more material goes through that facility, and that as there's more awareness about what you can put in your recycle bins, that, you know, the actual amount of waste going to landfill will reduce. And I know we've also had discussions about organic matter, and the question is whether there's enough organic matter in the region to actually house a composting facility, or whether we need to look at more of a strategic cross-region place. And I know the work happening in the waste strategy is really important work in that regard. But I am concerned, and I'm not sure, I know you had some discussions with LGAQ around the waste levy shortfall previously. I'm just wondering, from an advocacy point of view, from that strategic high level point of view, is there something that us as council should be doing in terms of, you know, flying the flag a little sooner?
Yeah, no, through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, we're certainly aware of the shortfall in last financial year, and obviously we're behind the 8 ball already after month 1. So we are having conversations with DES in relation to the discrepancies between what we're receiving and what we're paying back. Those conversations are ongoing, but you know, I'm hopeful that, yeah, we will be receiving some sort of increase in payment to offset. As you say, you know, we've introduced the curbside recycling, which is pulling tonnage out of landfill. But, you know, when you look at the landfills, you know, there's so much recycling going in there. You know, that we're not doing too much in that waste diversion at our waste facilities, other landfills, and certainly our unsupervised stuff, unsupervised facilities. You know, there's no waste diversion happening there. So anything that goes in the bin ends up in landfill, and there's a lot of recycling material that goes in there. Obviously, the installation of the way bridges at Nanango and then Wandai will also help with reducing that payment because we're actually paying on actual tonnage going across into those facilities. So that'll help. And as you mentioned, the food organic, green organic, that's a conversation that we'll probably be having as part of our new waste strategy, which I think we've got a session with council next month in relation to that, where we want to investigate that and what the pros and cons are. Like that's not going to be a 1 July implementation or anything like that, but we need to determine the cost benefits of it, and also what do we do with the finished product once we can collect it, but what do we actually do with it? Where does it go? Who gets it? What are we going to use that finished product for? So so that's very much looking towards the future, and I know Bundaberg, they're rolling out a trial. We know Lockyer's rolled out a trial, and we had people down there not long ago having a look at that. So there's more and more councils doing it, and there's through these regional plans coughing up some cash to facilitate trials as a minimum. So we're very mindful of that opportunity to potentially offset some of the costs should council wish to, and that's a conversation for the next council, not this one. But it will certainly be an action. I know it's an action in our operational plan currently, and it will certainly be an action in the next waste reduction recycling strategy. So.
Yeah, thank you for that update. Certainly, last week attended 2 sessions by Udo held in partnership with SBRC around soil health, and composting was a key, input as fertilisers become more and more expensive. It is something that, I think if we put our minds together, maybe there's something great that we could actually achieve here in the South Burnett. So thank you so much for the efforts. Certainly a lot of work behind the scenes in this report, and really look forward to that ongoing discussion about the waste strategy.
So thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Just just to follow on from what Councillor Shoemaker was saying about the recycling, and General Manager Darrell, just wanting to know, there was some requests for putting recycling cages or some sort of opportunity for people who don't have the recycling bins to actually do it at the transfer stations. What's happening with that?
Through you, Madam Chair. That would only be effective at the supervised waste facilities due to theft, vandalism, all the rest of it, and contamination would be a big thing to roll out. And obviously there's an additional cost to service these cages or bins or other containers that we would set up. We are certainly aware of it, and I know in the next supervision contract there's a greater focus on waste diversion initiatives being implemented at in particular the supervised site. So it's certainly on our radar, and obviously that's an integral part to removing those recyclables from going to landfill.
Yeah, no, thank you for that update. Councillor Erkins.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I'm just not real sure if this is the right place to raise this, but I did notice coming up is the contract for the Nanango tip. And I just wondered, is it possible to, maybe a question on notice, the tips across the region, how they actually managed, do we have contractors in for all of those, or do some we manage ourselves? And I'd just like to know a little bit of how it all works, if that's possible. If that can, sure. If we can get together sometime outside.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to answer that. Through you, Madam Chair. And you'll notice later on in the agenda, we're organising some tours of our waste facilities, so we can show you firsthand how we do that. But certainly at the landfills, we do have, Council does the day labour landfill component at Kingaroy. We do have the supervision side of things, or the weighbridge operations contracted out. At Nanango and Mergen and Wondai, we've got those operations, both supervision and landfill operations, contracted out. And we've got places like Blackbutt and Maidenwell that have, not Maidenwell, Bottle Camp, where we do have a contractor that does provide that supervision. And I think the majority of the other sites are all unsupervised.
Thank you.
Yep, so I look
Councillor
forward
Erkins?
to us doing that tour and probably learning a little more about how everything runs, especially as Councillor Potter said, you know, the fact that at those unsupervised sites, you know, there is a lot, you know, when you go through the agenda a bit later on, they're costing us a lot of money. I think it's something we have to take on board, and, you know, we are going to have to make some hard decisions on those unsupervised sites.
Thank you, Councillor Erkins. Are there any more questions or comments around the portfolio report? If not, we've had it moved by Councillor Potter, seconded by Councillor Henson, that the Waste Management Portfolio Report to Council be received for information. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Now we're moving on to 11.2, Waste and Recycling Management Operational Update on page 70. And that's that the Waste and Recycling Management Operational Update be received for information. General Manager Darryl, did you want to comment on any of the specific items?
No, through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, obviously it's just our monthly operational update, just containing the stats that we acquire, and yeah, just happy to take any questions.
So any questions to General Manager Darryl? If not, could someone move that report be received? Councillor Potter and seconded Councillor Erkins. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. So we're moving on to item 11.3, illegal dumping update. So that's officer's recommendation that the report be received for information. So there's quite a lot of information there. General Manager Darryl, did you want to give us a bit of an overview of what's in that report?
Yeah, sure. Through you, Madam Chair. So it's probably been a while since we've actually touched base with Council in relation to the Illegal Dumping Partnerships program. So it's just timely, I thought, that we provide an update as to what's going on in that space. And as you can see in that report, unfortunately, there is quite a bit going on in this space, which is not ideal, but at least we're getting onto it and addressing a lot of these illegal dumping issues. I mean, it's just such a long-term thing that we have to keep educating our community around what's right and what's wrong. And you know, to the credit of those involved in the program, you know, we are having some success, because I think there's been a history there where people have sort of been able to do whatever they want to do and get away with it. And now, especially at some of these unsupervised sites, you know, if we're finding evidence, well, then they're contacted, they have a conversation, we educate, and we move forward. So it is a long-term proposition, and, you know, there's so much more that we could be doing in this space in relation to, you know, education and signage and all that sort of, and cameras, you know, trying to catch these culprits red-handed. But yeah, I think we're just driven by customer requests and what the officers actually see, you know, and that's due to the expanse of the South Burnett. You know, lots of forestry areas, lots of, you know, road reserves and all quarries and all that sort of stuff that unfortunately people can access and do what they want to do and get away with it. So happy to take any questions on the report.
It's disappointing to see that people are just now throwing, well, they've probably been doing it for a long time, but you've identified, you know, just on the roadside, dumping Chinchilla-Wando Road, Mattresses, Tigles Road, Goodger, Green Waste, Couchman's Road, that's probably worse than going, at least making the effort to get to an unsupervised transfer station if you just start throwing it at will outside or dropping it off onto the roads. That's absolutely, it's disappointing to see that people are doing that still. So, Councillor Shoemaker?
Yeah, thank you for the report and the update. Total of 610 tonnes of illegal dumped waste for 22-23. 190 collected from roadsides, as you said, Councillor Duff, but it seems 430 tonnes collected from public places, with the majority being our unmanned waste transfer stations at a cost of $123,000. That is really significant, and 163 illegal dumping instances investigated by the compliance officer, who really, as you say, could be doing much better work in that proactive space rather than this constant reactive space. And looking at some of these photographs, I myself couldn't imagine the overwhelm of turning up at some of these places and having to clean up people's lounge chairs, piles of just who knows what rubbish. Like, the risk for our people is huge. Looking at this, Manager Darrell, you know, is this a part of our waste strategy? Will we start to have some discussions about these actions and perhaps some of the proposed solutions? Like, I personally would like to see us, I'd much rather see us spend that $123,000 on proactive measures to try to stop this behaviour than spending it on cleaning up everybody else's mess. So, you know, I'm wondering around some of the tables that you're sitting at, like, we're not alone in this. Obviously, a lot of our neighbouring councils would have similar challenges. We know from the discussions we've had around the Maidenwell transfer station, you know, the importance of providing a locked facility, around the Memorandum transfer station, the importance of controlled hours of service, how that can make a difference. I guess I'm just looking at this and thinking, you know, we're receiving that $84,000 to fund an officer at the moment to target the illegal dumping from the Department of Environmental Sciences, but there's no guarantee that funding will continue. What is guaranteed is this behaviour clearly is going to continue. And I'm really open to, you know, ideas, suggestions, solutions. I would much rather see our council make a proactive investment in trying to curb this behaviour and do things differently, rather than just allow it to keep happening and putting our people in a position where they're having to go out and clean this mess up all the time. I really think it is unacceptable. I know there's a lot of people who do the right thing, and by all means, you know, they should be congratulated, but clearly there's also a lot of people doing the wrong thing. So, Manager Brooks, I guess my question is, I'm sorry for the long-winded statement, but my question is, in the interactions with other surrounding regions, are there strategies? You know, I've read in the report you said you've used cameras and signage. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. Will this be part of the waste strategy, or how would you like to move forward with this issue?
Yeah.
General Manager Darrell.
Through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, obviously, yeah, it's a big issue. It's a statewide, it's a national issue. I mean, you see the comms come through around, you know, companies being fined for illegal dumping of liquid waste and asbestos and tyres and all that sort of thing. So it is a big issue, and obviously the state recognise it as such because they've extended the program, and hopefully they continue to do so. I mean, probably one of my disappointments around the program is the state does fund these roles across multiple local authorities, but, you know, we need like a statewide campaign around, you know, the impacts of illegal dumping and the impacts of the environment and the ecosystems and just the environmental harm that you know, potentially some of this illegal dumping can cause, because it is a statewide issue. It's a bit like some of the other issues that we talk about. You know, we're trying to solve the problem within the South Burnett, but it's actually a statewide issue. So let's look at that as a potential opportunity to educate the broader community. One thing that we probably don't do enough of is enforcement. So just writing out the tickets, you know, for those people that are doing the wrong thing. We generally try and work with them. Unfortunately, you know, in those photos, you know, with tyres and mattresses, you know, you can't identify the culprits. So, you know, enforcement isn't always the best stick to use. So really, it's a whole combination of things. But yeah, it's a tough, long road. There's no easy solutions. You know, I think a lot of other councils are struggling with, you know, well, what is the solution? Because, you know, if we fence off a quarry or you know, a road reserve where, you know, people have traditionally done some illegal dumping, well, then they just go and find the next place, and then we just forever keep chasing them. But I'd say enforcement is probably the only thing that we're probably not doing enough of, apart from having another, you know, dozen officers going around, you know, pursuing and educating and doing all that proactive work. But yeah, enforcement is probably unfortunately, the only way to go, but it's not always appropriate in every situation.
Just as a follow-on from that, like I'm a strong believer in community, like bringing the community on board. And so we've got those small rural tips, like Cloyna is one that's sort of an isolated tip transfer station, and then you've got one at Braguda. And there's a lot of locals who are conscious of the fact that, and like they want to keep that facility. They're very, like conscious of the fact that if we don't, like if it's not, things aren't done properly, that, further down the track council might have to consider closing those or something. So I'm wondering whether you could gather, as part of a strategy, to gather together the locals who would be the ones that would most likely use those tips, and you could put it out there like media releases and stuff, and actually have meetings on site and have those try and get some community champions and to have them take some ownership. Because I remember Cloyna, that some of the locals were, when it kept getting lit, they were sort of like they were very onto it, and they knew who was doing it, and they kind of like stopped it just in their own way, because they didn't want to see that continue. There was pollution going across the whole of Cloyna. Whether we could engage the community, and even further down the track, if we thought about putting fences up and saying, well, you have a swipe card, and that we're going to keep this facility provided this works, and try and get the community to be somewhat responsible. Because I know that, I'm pretty sure that Memorandum 1, they actually put, at one point there was actually, someone was so concerned about how it looked, they actually put some flowers and a bit of a garden around that one. Was that at, where was that one? I'm pretty sure years ago that actually happened. So I'm just wondering whether we can get more buy-in from the community on those transfer stations. That's just, I know I'm probably waffling on, but I just think this could be it's something we've never done before.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, that's certainly a worthwhile approach. And the other approach is, like, if someone turns up to an unsupervised facility and it's just a total mess, well, where's their motivation to do the right thing? I think, well, 20 people have been here before me and they've just dumped scrap metal in green waste and all different sorts of things wherever they want. So it's about how you present the sites as well, with signage and having clear designated areas. And you can't beat supervision. I know there's a cost to you providing supervision, especially when a lot of these sites have to be open on weekends, because that's when the high usage period is. But such things as, keypads and that we have at Cumbia and the like, if we utilise them with CCTV cameras, that might be another way. If we can check the cameras, we've got some illegal dumping from the weekend, we can go back, see who's accessed the facility over that period of time and follow it up that way. So, there are ways around doing those sorts of things. It's just having the budget to be able to do it.
Councillor Erkins.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. One of the things I'm wondering, $123,000 for being collected from roadsides and unmanned facilities. I just wonder if people throwing a mattress out on the side of the road, the number of people who do that because they don't want to pay the fee, I just wonder if, we're charging because we've got to pay to get rid of them, but if people are just dumping them on the side of the road, we still have to pay, and we have to pay to pick it up. The same with tyres. Should we look at, maybe whether where we're doing the cost to recover our costs, whether that is really whether it's paying for itself, or the fact that people just go and dump illegally, and as I said, we then still have to pay the cost of disposing of it ourselves, plus we've got to go and pick it up, or we've got to go to these unmanned sites where they're going and dumping it. We've still got to do it. And, you know, I would think that a vast majority of those people probably go past the tip to go to an unmanned site to dump their rubbish. And I know it's something that we've always, you know, it's been discussed lots, that if we charge for this, people are just going to dump it on the side of the road, or they're going to go to the forestry, or they're going to do it. And I do think that maybe we need to look at that, because now we're getting, we can see a little more clearly how much that is being done. Maybe we should look at that again, you know, that if we're going to be closing some of these unmanned sites, you know, if people may be more agreeable to seeing something close if they know they can go and dump their mattress at the other one and not be charged for it, rather than seeing them on the side of the road. I don't know. I mean, I do think it's something. I think a lot of the figures are in there. We can see how much it's costing us at these unmanned sites, people dumping stuff on the side of the road. You know, maybe it's time to have a look at it and see whether we're not, you know, whether it's cost effective the way we're doing it now, or whether it can be looked at for some other options.
Thank you. General Manager Darrell, did you want to comment?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, so obviously, yeah, that's a big thing, because, you know, people turn up to the waste facility with something that's a waste, and then we're hitting them up for a charge to dispose of. So it comes back to the old thing of product stewardship. So when you buy a mattress, when you buy a fridge, when you buy a tyre, you should be paying at the time when you actually want the product for its disposal. So, you know, we talk about, you know, all these, you know, cradle to grave and you know, all this sort of stuff. But, you know, if we're serious about it, that's when we need to pay for the disposal. So
Yep.
when you think about what people pay for a new mattress these days, you know, you can get them really expensive. If you added $20 at the time of purchase for the disposal, well, then people don't really balk at that. But obviously when the mattress is 10 years old and they want to throw it out, and we get them $20 up the waste facility, well, that's when they get cranky. That's when they drive out and they throw it in the side of the road, down the creek or whatever. So I think, and that's a federal government sort of, you know, and there are various product stewardship schemes out there, but majority of them are voluntary. So, you know, why would industry sign up for it if it's going to cost them? A bit like solar panels, like, you know, solar panel industry's made a mozza out of mums and dads and businesses, but they haven't, you know, what's the disposal options for solar panels that are rendered, you know, end of life? So, so that's my big mantra, I guess, is people should be paying for the disposal at the time of purchase, when they're happy to pay the money, the big money for the item, whether it's a fridge, freezer, tyre, etc. And then at the end of life, we just become a receival facility. So you bring your mattress free of charge. We've got a place here where we can stockpile them. You know, people can come along and remove them and get the metal out of them and the foam and all that sort of thing. And yeah, it's just a much better model than what we currently are working under.
Yeah, mic's off. Your mic's off.
Oh, so if someone collected that, the business collected that money, then they would give that to council. That would be like a levy on a charge to all those things that need to be disposed of.
Yeah, madam. It's exactly like the drum muster program. You pay that 4 cents a litre or whatever it is, you know, at the time of purchase, and look how long that program's been working for, and how successful that is in keeping chemical containers out of landfills and gullies and creeks and all the rest of it. So, you know, if that sector can get it right and be highly successful, how come other areas can't adopt a similar model?
So that would need to be government legislation. That would be something we need to advocate for. I think that's a brilliant idea. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yeah, it certainly is. I just wondered, just one final question, Manager Darrell. You know, we have 17 waste facilities across the South Burnett, quite a lot. I wondered if we'd done any audit of those facilities and actually identified, you know, some of the capital deficiencies at these sites. Like, I think we all recognise that if you could fence them, put keypads in place, put better signage, improve the way the facility looks, it could encourage better behaviours. And I just wondered if you know, you look at the funding that's come through and the funding we've been able to apply for, we really won't be able to apply for that funding unless we really know what we need. And I'm just wondering if in some of the work that you're doing, and I know there's a mountain of work, if there has been a review at any time of all of that infrastructure, where it's currently at, its current life, you know, those sorts of things. I know some of it has happened around the landfills, but yeah, around those other facilities, because I think there could be an opportunity to try to improve them over time.
Yeah. Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, certainly agree. We probably haven't done an overall review of, you know, obviously, as you say, we've had a few other irons in the fire. But I certainly think when the conversation comes back to council around, well, what facilities, how many facilities, what are we going to do with them? I think that's the time where, yeah, we'll say, rightio, to upgrade a particular facility, you'll need, you know, $60,000 worth of fencing, you'll need, you know, X amount for a gate, we'll need 5,000 for signage, we'll need, you know, all the rest of it. So I think that's the time when we'll provide that level of information to council, so, you know, they can make an informed decision around where we're going, what facilities we want to upgrade, what facilities maybe want to close, and yeah, move forward from there.
Yeah, fantastic, thank you. I think that just that actual context about the infrastructure itself would be really valuable, so thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Erkins.
Yeah, I totally agree on the putting us lobbying to government to help assist in that the fee when people purchase things. But I do think for us, I do think that we need to look more carefully. Again, I look forward to us doing the tour of the sites, and maybe it's open for more discussion then as to whether what we're charging is being covered by the illegal dumping. You know, it's something that I'm very keen to see the figures and see how much what the difference is, how much we actually get in from mattresses and tyres, how much it costs us and how much we lose. So very keen to see that come on board.
Thank you, Councillor Erkins. Yeah, that transfer station, I remember it was Home Creek when they first put it in. There were some locals that were so excited about it. They actually put a garden there. I was trying to think which one it was, but it was actually Home Creek. Yes, so now we have it moved by Councillor Potter and seconded by Councillor Erkins that the Waste and Recycling Management Operational Update be received. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Oh, sorry. Oh, I've skipped. I was just looking at that one. Sorry. Oh, so, okay, we've done that one. So now we're moving on to, the illegal dumping update we received for information. Someone to move that. Councillor Potter, seconded Councillor Erkins. Any more discussion? All those in favour? Against? Carried. Sorry. So now we're moving on to my portfolio report. So in Parks and Facilities Management, Council's Facilities and Parks section has been focused on the delivery of capital works projects and implementation of the winter maintenance program for park infrastructure. Some of the projects include a range of community engagements were held during the month, which included Cumbia Park refurbishment, community use and suitability of Badooma Community Centre, and the location for the time capsule for Steaming Back to Wandai event. Councillors and staff were present and found the community provided great responses which will assist for future development of these projects. Kingaroy Memorial Park's Youth Precinct detailed design for the construction of multi-purpose court and ninja course tender has been released and will close 12th of September. Council swimming pools are getting ready for the new summer season of swimming. The pools will open on Friday the 15th of September. All pools will continue to offer a great range of exercise programs and recreational activities, including learn to swim programs as per previous years. The finishing touches are being completed on the change rooms at Wandai Pool and will open on the 15th as well. Update on the Monja Hall roof replacement project is that it is expected to be fully completed within the next 3 weeks. Council assisted with the Blackbutt District Community Organisation with their application for the third round of funding in the 2023 Gambling Community Benefit Fund program. If successful, the funding will be used for a new shelter and seating near the Blackbutt Sensory Gardens. Nanango and Blackbutt Park staff are busy getting ready for the upcoming Blackbutt Avocado Festival on the 9th of September. They are busy tidying up gardens and park areas in readiness for visitors and locals to enjoy. Upgrades will begin shortly at Lesmuller Park, Blackbutt, where the old shelter next to the hut that was the Blackbutt Visitor Information Centre will be removed and a new one installed, along with a new picnic table setting and barbecue, which will both be wheelchair friendly. So then there's some photos, and we're on to. But that concludes my report. I'd like to move that it be received. Seconded by Councillor Henson. Any questions? No.
Yeah, just quickly, the iron on the roof of Mondure Hall, is it any good for recycling or reusing?
I will hand over to Manager Peterson for that response.
No, I would suggest not. Yep, it's had a large amount of hail damage and it's deteriorated with a lot of rust. So my suggestion is it's not suitable for any of our building works, but I would imagine we've included it into the tender when we tendered out that the material would be disposed of through the actual contractor.
Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. I got really excited when I read over this report because I think a lot of these things we've been talking about for a long time, and it's just wonderful to actually see some of the projects getting completed or nearing completion. Really excited to check out the Wandai Pool when it opens. Those change rooms, I did see some photos somewhere online, and they're really, what an astronomical difference that has really made. Like, congratulations to the team involved. The Blackbutt Sensory Garden, recently down there with Councillor Jones, I cannot believe from the time we first went there with these tiny little trees to what it is now. It's really quite exceptional and something the Blackbutt community can be really proud of. Really looking forward to the Avocado Festival this weekend, and just wanted to call out too, I did go through Banark and have a look at some of the work that's happened in the park there. I know you reported on it last month, but it's wonderful to see, you know, so many people camped up using the rail trail and enjoying the new facilities and the improvements at Banarkin, and I know there's much more to come. Sorry I couldn't make it to the Cumbia refurbishment discussion that night, but I do know there's a lot of really exciting ideas on the table for that one, and just wanted to sing out and shout out, I guess, to the team, because the community consultation that councillors have been involved in or been able to be part of has been really next level. So thank you so much. I think having those upfront conversations and being clear in terms of what community's thinking we're going to do and what council can actually deliver on is really important. And I'm really looking forward to the next 6 months ahead and seeing some of these projects actually completed. So thank you, Manager Leanne. It was wonderful to show Minister Hinchcliffe the other day with Councillor Potter and Councillor Erkins where the youth precinct is going to be in the Memorial Park. You know, I think it just every week we just keep tracking closer and closer to our goal of creating a more livable community, and these projects really do matter. So thank you so much. I'm really excited about the couple of months ahead and the work and the energy that your team's bringing to this space. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. I thought it was wonderful too, the Badooma Badooma Community Centre. There were so many people came along and they were so passionate about that particular building, and yeah, I think there's a good outcome that will happen there as well. So that was fantastic. So well done, Manager Leanne. Any other, Councillor Erkins?
Just a little trivial information. When we met with Minister Hinchcliffe at Memorial Park, Councillor Potter did actually show a little more than the park when she tripped and fell at his feet.
That was probably a little bit too much information, but thank you, Councillor Erkins. So my portfolio report has been moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Henson. Any other questions? Oh, all good. Councillor Erkins, you still got your light on. You happy? All those in favour? Against? Carried. And Acting Mayor Jones has left the room. Make a note of that. Thank you. So now we're moving on to Parks and Gardens Facilities and Operational Update. So Manager Leanne, did you want to give a brief overview of your update?
Yes, thank you, Council. Just briefly updating that the Kingaroy flood modelling project has commenced. So last week we had an on-site meeting down there with the consultants and worked through and had a good look at the site and the whole catchment. So that's quite exciting to work through that project and develop all of the parameters to go into that flood modelling and bring that report back to council in a short time frame. So that's happening. The Kingaroy Youth Precinct tender closes on the 12th of September. So we're getting a lot of input and questions from a number of tenderers. So that's great to see that people are excited in and participating in that and hoping to win the tender to design such an amazing precinct. So that's looking good. The Cumbia Park redevelopment project that everyone's mentioned, the community consultation, we did have 36 people attend the evening's meeting, which was fantastic. The community survey actually closes tomorrow, so just continue to encourage people to fill out that community survey. And certainly we've had meetings with the primary school and the high school children out and around Cumbia. And since the meeting, we've done some follow-up inspections actually at the sports ground and had a look over the courts, done some inspection on the courts and just had a really good look at how bad they are. And also through the facility out there at the tennis clubhouse and some of those other areas. So all of that information is coming together quite nicely, and we hope to go back to the community over the next 4 to 6 weeks and continue to have their input into that design so we can bring that back to council. So we'll bring more back and advise you on when those next meetings are occurring. The only other thing I want to mention was our vandalism across the region is still occurring within our public conveniences, and I just want to highlight that once again, Les Muller Park and Reg McCallan Park has been hit again, and also our rotunda down in the Kingaroy Memorial Park. Quite a serious amount of damage done there on the concrete surface of the rotunda, which we are going to be able to treat and wash and remove, but it is deteriorating the condition of the concrete on the actual rotunda itself. So we're just working through a proposal on what are our options going forward and how do we actually protect it, because it's always going to be a place where children or youth and young adults like to hang out, and somehow it just seems to attract that inappropriate use. But yes, we'll bring back a report to council about what we suggest we do for the rotunda. I did see some grants just recently released for RSLs and council to work together in a partnership arrangement and look at sort of maintenance and repairs to monuments. So it could be something that we work with Kingaroy RSL on, and we might be able to do a joint application for that site. So I just wanted to highlight that we are still getting lots of issues, and we're getting ready for the school holidays, which for some reason, it continues to increase over that period of time. So those cameras that you previously approved for Pioneer Park, Les Muller Park, QE2's already in. They will be installed hopefully over the next couple of weeks, so we have them on board ready for the school holidays. So just flagging that for people's information.
Thank you, Manager Leanne. Councillor Erkins.
Thank you. Just straight on to the vandalism, which is just extremely disappointing. One of the things I don't know, even with the cameras, but if kids are under a certain age, we can do nothing about it. So, I just don't know whether it's not, or how, I don't know, but it's more about educating parents into making sure they know where their kids are. There was recently a garage in Nanango was robbed, and they have arrested a 12-year-old. So, I know that 12-year-olds who go to the park, I've spoken to the police, if a 12-year-old goes in and they catch them at our toilets vandalising, they really can do nothing about it, because at 12, they're not considered that they know the difference between right and wrong, which is a bit strange. I think most kids know the difference between right and wrong by the time they're 2, if they're taught. But anyway, off that. Off that. Nanango Tipperary Flats, just reading the update on that, and I'm really happy with that. I'm looking forward to the grass seed going in. There's some signage down there that needs to be changed where people are going in and out. That needs to be addressed. We've actually got caravans having to move through all those trees to get out. That needs to be. We've got a no entry for people going out at the area where they probably should be going out for safety. If we can just look at that. I did take someone down to show them the water feature. It was actually turned off, so I don't know whether we have that running all the time or whether that was off for a reason, but it really is, looking great, and I'm really grateful to my fellow councillors for assisting me to get that funding through, and to Leanne and your staff for the work, and to the infrastructure team as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Erkins. Just on the winter maintenance program manager, Leanne, I was just wondering if you could add one more dot point to Mergen. As you're coming in on the left-hand side in Lions Park, those two big poles, like the where the entrance is that there's two, like there's like an archway, and they're just, every time I see them, I'm thinking I've got to put in a request, but they just need painting. They're all peeled, and it just looks. I'm almost tempted to do that, but councillors can't actually do the operational side of things, but they're all peeled, and they just look. It's a beautiful park, but those two posts have two patches there that I would just love to get a white paintbrush on. So yeah, if you could just perhaps add that dot point, that would be wonderful. Thank you. Sorry. Any Councillor Erkins, did you have something else? Any other questions? So we have someone to move that the Facilities and Parks operational update be received for information. Moved by Councillor Erkins, seconded by Councillor Potter. All those in favour? Against? Carried.
So I'll just leave for this item.
Thank you. So Councillor Erkins is leaving because we're moving on to item 14.1, property management services for Nanango housing and unit complexes. And the officer's recommendation is that committee recommends for council that council enter into council services contract with Tremont Proprietary Limited Trading as South Burnett Real Estate of the Nanango housing and unit complexes for a period of 5 years. So might ask the manager to comment.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Councillors, just to advise you that we did go to tender. Only one tender response was received, and the tender that was presented was a compliant tender. So we're happy with their response. Just for your information, the tender breaks down the responsibilities of a real estate agent that looks at marketing and managing all of the rental properties that we have listed with them, and they collect the rent. They have a management fee. They administer all of the rentals, payment and following up with the tenants. They manage all the tenant agreements. And then they also do minor maintenance. So if a tenant comes in after hours, take an after hours call or whatever, where something may have been damaged or an issue, the actual real estate agent works through that for council. So that's what's included in their management fee, and some of those minor works that they do without any concern, just a minor improvement. They go about and organise that through their actual handyman. So We've tendered it out again, and we're happy with the response and made a recommendation there through to council to engage South Burnett Real Estate for a 5-year period to continue these services.
Thank you, Manager Leanne. Does anyone have any questions, comments?
Just quickly through you, Chair. So you say it went out to tender, all real estate agents in the Nango and wherever else received, or how was that dispersed, that tender? Because I've had conversation that some may, I'm only going on what they're saying, and we all know how it acts out in the community, but some say they were unaware that this tender was coming up.
Manager Leanne?
I would just have to double check with procurement that it was sent to all real estate agents. I would suggest that that's what would have happened. We would have sent out an email just advising them that the tender is out, but they would have to actually log on and make application through our tendering platform.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Happy to go to the vote. So someone move that could someone move that the committee recommend to council? The council enter a council services contract with Tremont Proprietary Limited trading as South Burnett Real Estate of the Nanango Housing and Unit complexes for a period of 5 years. Someone to move that? Councillor Potter, seconded Councillor Shoemaker. You ready to go to the vote? All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you all. We might ask if we could let Councillor Erkins know to come back in. So we're moving on to item 14.2 on page 93. The officer's recommendation is that the committee recommend to council that council approve for sale by tender 142 McAllister Street, Mergen, lot 1 RP 164438 by 1, entering into negotiations with the highest tender, and if the current market value of the property is reached, enter a contract of sale for the property, or 2, if negotiations with the highest tender does not result in the sale of the property at current market value, list the property for sale on the open market, or 3, prior to settlement, remove the section of footpath that encroaches the property along the southwestern boundary and relocate it to its correct location, being the adjacent designated access way. So that's the recommendation. Manager Leanne, did you want to speak to that?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we've been doing some work in our land section to try to identify some additional land for council to start looking at in ways of actually, I suppose, disposing of some of the additional assets, land assets that we do have. As we spoke to council and presented in the land review probably nearly 6 months ago, there was a number of parcels in that land review and they are progressing, so we haven't ignored that. That's all happening, and you would have seen that in the operational update. But this is another parcel that we have identified, and it has got an existing footpath that links from McAllister Street into the parkland. We're not saying completely remove the footpath and not allow that access. What we're suggesting here is to move the footpath over to the side and create an allotment. So still have that walk through and connection into the park, but actually free up some of that land to make an allotment there. It would be a sellable allotment, and then council could sell this allotment, and a new residence could be built there. So it's up for council's consideration. There would be a cost there for us to move the footpath, and we have an estimate of approximately $10,000 in the report. For that to occur.
It's 18,000.
18, sorry. Yep, thanks, 18,000 for that to occur. So these are the sorts of things that we're going to see in future reports, that we may actually need to make improvements or modifications in a particular allotment to actually maximise the benefit, to create the actual allotment free and available for sale. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions to Manager Leanne? Councillor Shoemaker.
Yeah, I'm happy to move the motion.
Moved by Councillor Shoemaker. Someone to second the motion? Councillor Henson.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. Just question is in relation to the land behind 142. So on page 99, there's like a blue section, and I wondered, is that parkland for draining? Like, I can see the footpath runs through there. Just wondered if you had any information about that land behind.
Yes.
Manager Leanne?
Yes, so it is a large park that council owns through there. I'd have to just check, I think it's freehold land, and it's something that we would need to work through in the future, what that land is being utilised for. At the moment, it's just treed and it's a big open space. There's a lot of lawn, a lot of grass in there to mow and maintain, but Mergen doesn't have a lot of parks, to be honest with you, and this is probably a really nice open space area that is being utilised. However, it is extremely large, so it's something that we need to look at in our park review, how we might actually reduce some of this parkland in the future, but then create additional facilities in there for this community.
Yeah, thank you. I saw that as perhaps an opportunity when you look at the sale of this lot, maybe some of the funding can go into that parkland behind. I also wasn't sure if we sold this lot, is the only access to that parkland via, I'm sorry, I should have went for a drive when we were in Mergen the other day. Is the only access via that footpath, or is there access on the other street, on the other side of the block?
It is a challenging one to access that McMahon Park, yes.
Yeah, there is. I was just trying to think of the name. There is additional access on the other side of the street. I just don't have that available here to show you. But yes, there is another access to this site.
Yeah, in principle, I'm absolutely supportive of this motion, and I think it's really exciting now that we've got a land officer on board that we're starting to actually really look at the land that we own, look at if it could house a better outcome. I certainly think another residence, I'm sure we all agree, in the region is a really great outcome, particularly when land is such a struggle at the moment to get your hands on. I do wonder about, and probably just in the lead up to the general meeting, if there is any further information just around that parkland behind and what the future strategy might be for that. The only, thing I guess I was thinking is just making sure that we're not stranding that asset in the middle. Should there be other opportunities to develop a larger lot of land or create more housing opportunities in the area? All in all, though, I know going through our operational budget this year, it is so fine, and any opportunity to reduce operational costs and achieve better strategic outcomes like increasing our population and providing more opportunities for people to build housing in the area is a really good outcome. So just wanted to thank the team for bringing it forward. And my only question, if there is any additional information that can come back, it's just in relation to that parkland behind, if there's anything council should be aware of before we make this decision. But I will go and have a look in the meantime. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Manager Leanne, did you want to make any more comments?
Yes, Karen was able to bring up the mapping for me. It's the additional access would be off right way. Yeah, so happy for you to have a look, and yes, we'll bring back further information just about the size of that park, and maybe some additional information just regarding the park. So happy to do that. For the general.
It is. It's that McMahon Park is it's a big area, but it hasn't ever been really looked at very carefully. I know that when Greg Griffith was the manager, he said into the future, it's something that will be very important to Mergen. It's good to have that parkland because Mergen hasn't got many parks. So yeah. So thank you for the question, Councillor Shoemaker. Are there any other questions? If not, it's the committee recommend to council Oh, sorry, Councillor Erkins.
I do see on the map that's here, I see right way and Tin and Terrace and Shelsman, but I can't actually see where that is in relation to the block of land. And I see the pathway, so I don't know if that would be lot 1. Lot 1. Okay, yeah, I'd like to have a look, because sometimes if a block like that, you know, there may be opportunity to do something with that land behind, and whether it does compromise access.
So do we want to have to leave it lay on the table until the council meeting and have a look at it, or do you just want
Have a
to?
look at it?
No, you're good to go.
Yep. Okay.
So it's been moved by Councillor Shoemaker and seconded by Councillor Henson. The following that council approved for sale by tender the 142 McAllister Street, Mergen, and the 3 points.
Can I just say, one of the things that I am concerned about selling land, especially, you know, in response to what Councillor Shoemaker said about, we know how we're running close and all that. You know, I honestly do not agree with selling assets to cover costs. You know, I think we have to look at that. If we're selling an asset and we're going to use it to do something with, but not to cover our running expenses, I think we definitely have to be careful about selling things to cover running expenses, because in the end you end up with no assets, and how you're going to pay for things.
Well, thank you, Councillor Erkins, for the comment. I think that the intention is here, like if it's a block that can be a residence, like we're looking for housing outcomes, and was the intention here, rather than trying to sell off an asset to cover costs. That's my belief. Yes, CEO Mark.
Just want to, and certainly agree with Councillor Erkin's point, and just want to make it absolutely clear that we do not use capital or any of these programs, loans, to cover any operational costs. It is, I'd say, use the word forbidden, but it's bad practice and it doesn't do it. I think the line in the report, and apologies if it's not clear enough, but is that it'll be for future development, so they'll be reinvested into other properties that need to be capitalised and sold. So it'll stay within that capital sphere fully. So it'll be utilising well, it could be utilised for any capital project, but yeah, definitely under no circumstances is capital money to offset operational cost.
Can I
Councillor
just
Shoemaker?
confirm the statement? Because that's absolutely not what my intention was, to be clear. My intention was, we've had discussions about reducing our operational maintenance costs. And if we're reducing the land that our people have to mow every summer season, then essentially we're reducing the cost of mowing, the costs that are borne by ratepayers that fund our operational costs. Fully understand in the report that the funding gained from divesting in assets is reinvested in capital, not in operations. So just want to be clear, Councillor Erkins, that was not my intent of my statement. My intent was the fact that our focus as a council from the beginning of this term has been reducing our operational costs, and by doing that, looking at our service levels carefully and looking at how much land we actually mow, which was a big reason why we started looking at the land divestment strategy in the first place, was actually looking strategically at how we could create better outcomes for the region. So I just want to be clear, that's not what I meant. I can see on the map here that Right Way could potentially offer other opportunities to even create more lots in that area. And that's what my question was about. So thank you for clarifying that.
Thank
Fully
you, Councillor.
supportive of the motion, would like to proceed with it.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Councillor
Thank you
Erkins.
for your lecture, Councillor. On it. One of the things, but I understand what you're saying about the cutting down the cost, but probably a quarter of an acre block when you look at that big thing behind. But I just wanted to make sure for my information that that's what we're doing, and thank you to CEO Mark for that, clarifying that for me as well. Thank you. Thanks.
So thank you. We have the recommendation. So, Councillor Shoemaker, you happy to go to the vote now. It's the council approved for sale by tender 142 McAllister Street, Mergen, Lot 1, RP 164438 and there's three dot points. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Now we're moving on to 14.3, sale of 4 Haley Street, Kingaroy to Ergon Energy Queensland Limited. It's on page 102. The officer's recommendation is that the committee recommend to council that council offer the land for sale to Ergon Energy being part of Energy Queensland Limited. 1, contract of sale to be in accordance with Section 236 of the Local Government Regulation 2012. Dot point 2, Queensland Government Land Transaction Policy 2021, and dot point 3, SBRC Disposal of Assets Policy. So, Manager Leanne, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you, Chair. Councillors, once again, this is another property that we have identified through some further investigations and some discussions that we've had with Ergon Energy. As you're aware, this site down on Dunkuna Street, it contains or it involves a easement for council purposes. So council has a drainage easement across this land, and also Ergon Energy has an easement across for the purpose of their infrastructure coming from the substation moving to the east of the allotment. So it is in great interest for Ergon to acquire this parcel of land for any future expansion of the substation or maintenance with the amount of infrastructure and above ground lines that they do have coming out of the substation. The site has no other purpose for council. Definitely the easement would retain for the drainage. That will retain on the allotment if it was sold to Ergon Energy. So council would still continue to have access to the drainage for us to do maintenance on that site. There's a little bit of maintenance there that we would like to do for the drain, just to ensure that the vegetation and regrowth that's through that drain is actually removed, and we protect our infrastructure, and also the outlet of the drain head wall there just needs some additional work. So we propose that would occur, but yeah, we would like to continue our negotiations if council endorses this report with Ergon Energy or sorry, with Queensland, the Queensland Energy is who we would actually be doing the sale with. So, yep, open for discussion and questions.
Thank you, Manager Leanne. Are there any questions? Councillor Erkins.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Manager Leanne. Leanne, would that mean that they could put more of those big power poles and increase the size of that substation? Would that affect neighbours? You know, will that have an adverse effect on neighbours that are closer to it?
No, on this particular site, and happy to take you down and have a look at the site. There's no residential properties adjoining this property, to the east of this property.
So 89. So I'm not really sure if I'm looking at it right. So 89. That then comes onto the houses. So we're looking at the zero. So 89, what is 89? Look, is that land that may have some subdivision potential in the future for someone, and by letting the substation come in closer, that would affect that? Or
if you just scroll down to the aerial photograph, 89 is is the substation.
Oh, okay.
And then you've got...
So it's going the other way.
Yeah.
So 262 is...
And 262 is a buffer for Swiggers, a green buffer. So that's Swiggers.
Okay,
land.
so that it won't actually cause any... Down the track, we won't have people going mad about them putting...
No, it would be the allotment to the south of there, which is what you're seeing as number 2. There is a residence house there. But, you know, Ergon Energy would have to work through the planning requirements for that substation upgrade or development.
Yeah.
It could be just additional power lines for all we know. I'm not sure what Ergon's intent is in the future, and I would imagine they're acquiring this, you know, for the future, looking, you know, into the next 20,
I just
30
know
years.
if you own a house
Yep.
near power lines and you have, you know, high voltage power lines come close. I mean, we talk about those people out on near adjacent to the solar farm and how that has devalued their houses. Having high voltage power lines coming closer, you know, that could have an effect. So I'm not saying that it would, and I'm not 100% sure on how it actually aligns, but I do think we need to take that into consideration, look at that, you know, in our discussions.
Thank you, Councillor Erkins. Thank you. Are there any other questions, comments? So are we happy for someone to move that? Move the recommendation that council offer the land for sale to Ergon Energy, being part of Energy Queensland Limited. Someone to move that? Councillor Shoemaker, someone to second that? Councillor Henson. Any further discussion? Did you want to say some
I just have a question.
question? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker.
Yeah, just want to confirm, it says in the report that that piece of land that we're actually looking at is zoned rural. So from a planning perspective, it's my understanding if they wanted to do anything further with that, that would almost be impact accessible. Am I correct in that, Manager Darrell? Yep. I think that is in my division and my area. It is very untidy and very messy, no disrespect. And I can see, you know, the drain from the photographs here is full of some rather large vegetation. So I think all in all, if the site is owned by Ergon and largely occupied by their infrastructure, it's possibly a better outcome for the community from a maintenance point of view. I imagine they'll have, you know, more control over maintaining the grass and the vegetation in the area if they own the lot. And I do know that Swickers layer in that area makes it very difficult, even looking at Carew Park, for any sort of further development or anything in that area. So it makes sense that it would become, in my view, and from what I know from talking with residents in the area, it would make sense to me, this proposal. So I don't have any concerns, and I do think it also reduces council's requirement to mow and maintain land in the region, and each little piece, hopefully, in the longer term, will make a much bigger outcome. So I'm supportive of the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Manager Leanne, you've got your light on. Did you want to speak or no? All good. Okay, so it's been moved by Councillor Shoemaker, seconded by Councillor Henson. The council offered the land for sale to Ergon Energy, being part of Energy Queensland Limited. Contract of sale to be in accordance with Section 236 of the Local Government Regulation 2112, Queensland Government Land Transaction Policy 2021 and SBRC Disposal of Assets Policy. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Now we're moving on to 14.4, sale by tender of lot 104 Kingaroy Burrendown Road, Inverlour. On page 113, the officer's recommendation is that the committee recommend to council the council offers for sale by tender lot 104 Kingaroy Burrendown Road, Inverlour, lot 104 FY 1203 by 1, entering into negotiations with the highest tenderer, and if the current market value of the property is reached, enter into a contract of sale for the property, or 2, if negotiations with the highest tenderer does not result in the sale of the property at current market value, lists the property for sale on the open market, and number 3, that works up to $10,000 be undertaken prior to settlement to improve the saleability of the property. So, Manager Leanne, did you want to speak to this one?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, councillors, just advising that this allotment is currently fenced into the property, which would be the adjoining property owner. The adjoining property owner is utilising the land for their operations, which is Cattle Enterprise. Unfortunately, we have been unable to make contact with the adjoining property owner, just to advise them that the report is coming through to council. However, yeah, I believe my understanding and through the legislation, this is a parcel of land that is actually sellable in its entire right by itself. So if the adjoining landowner is not interested in the property, then it could be sold as a separate allotment. But of course, we would like to talk to the adjoining landowner because they're already utilising this in their operations. And there would be a small cost involved if we were to actually sell it as a individual allotment. It would need to be fenced and fenced out of the operations of that adjoining owner. So, yeah, we're happy to progress offer this for tender to see if the adjoining landowner or other people are interested in purchasing this allotment in the future.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Shoemaker.
My only question was, do we know why council actually held it? It's just a bizarre location. I'm fully supportive of the recommendation. As it stands, I think it absolutely makes sense. And it could, you know, from the looks of it, actually make quite a nice rural res property out there if the adjoining landowner didn't want to buy it. But I was just probably really curious. It's such a strange, whether it was a rates and arrears lot or I don't know. But
I think our historical data was showing us that it was originally identified as an alternative site for a bore for council purposes, for a water bore.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that would make
and
sense.
obviously we didn't progress with that.
Yeah.
However, we've continued to retain the parcel of land. So
Okay. That makes sense. With the, I know Manager Tim's talked about all the ball field work out in that area before. So, no, fully supportive of the motion as it stands. Happy to move that, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. So it's been moved by Councillor Shoemaker. Is there someone prepared to second that motion? Councillor Potter. So I just wanted to thank Manager Leanne through, if you can pass the feedback on. It's good to see these blocks being dealt with because I know there's a lot of land across the whole region that we manage, but it would be better utilised in somebody else's hands. And so thank you for, if you could pass on our thanks for the work that's being done, that's really great. So all those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. So now we're moving on to item 14.5, gifting of St Faith Church and Cemetery, Monjour. The officer's recommendation is that the committee recommend to council that council respectfully decline the offer to be gifted the St Faith Anglican Church and Cemetery property located at Monjour. Manager Leanne.
thank you, Chair. Councillors, we have received correspondence from the church asking council if they would be interested in being gifted the church and the cemetery. We have provided a fair bit of detail in the report about the size of the church, the condition of the church, the cemetery as well. They are very old historical assets that will require a fair bit of investment to actually bring them back to maintain them and keep them in operating condition. Currently, the cemetery still is being utilised and bookings are still occurring through the church to be buried at the actual site. So, yeah, if council was to take on the cemetery, there would be ongoing administration and management of the site. And yeah, I'm not sure we have no interest in the church. And, you know, it's quite, I suppose, specific to a purpose, the way it has been designed, so its alternative uses probably would be limited. So yeah, our recommendation is to council is to respectfully decline the offer or of the gifting, and the church will need to continue to investigate their options going forward into the future.
Thank you, Manager Leanne. Councillor Potter.
Yeah, thank you, Acting Chair. Look, I'm just curious if this is something that we could take on, hear me out, and maybe subdivide because I think the cemetery is something that needs to be looked after and maintained. And I'm just wondering whether we could subdivide that land off and maybe sell the church off or something like that as a residence. I know you're smirking, Leanne, but I was just curious whether that's actually been looked at or not.
Thank you. Just wanted to let the committee know that, as far as I'm aware, the locals, there's one particular local gentleman who actually maintains and does all the mowing around the cemetery in that whole area. Yeah, I just wonder whether the Monjur, like that fire brigade or that hall committee, or it's something that they might be interested in doing something with. But it's certainly a challenging situation because those heritage listed buildings are well, the property is listed on the local heritage register, so it's only the local listing, isn't it? So it's not state. Yeah. Yeah. So it's going to be a tricky one because I know that the locals are very passionate about, what happens to that cemetery and into the future. So I just don't know a way forward with this. It's a tricky one. So would we be able to are we in a position to discuss that with those local groups, or is that just something that we should step away from and just let that take its natural course?
Yeah, well, I was just thinking, the church on your way to Cumbia, remember it had a hall, was it? I don't think it was a church, and they went through and just disposed of the asset firstly themselves. Yes, the church as well as the hall, and those assets were disposed of by the church group, and then now what's left there is just the cemetery, and the cemetery is continued to be maintained by the church or individuals that were part of that church. So whether that's something that yes, these guys could work through the same process and dispose of their building assets firstly, and then just have the actual cemetery there, and then whether or not there's still members in the Monjur community that are just happy to continue to maintain the grounds and the cemetery. But that's something that maybe they would have to discuss, and we can probably help them along those discussions and make them aware of what other church groups have done in our region. Happy to do that, but probably just trying to work out where does council sit with this. Is it something that you'd like to take on, or firstly, are you happy to decline their offer and just work through and give them some suggestions on how we've seen it work in other parts of our region and see where that goes?
Yeah, through you. Well, it's just I think that we need to have the discussions with that Monjur Hall committee and the local fire brigade, and to try and help them manage it, because I know that they're currently managing it, so or some of the locals are. So, I don't want to see it not be like. I'd like to see that we have that consultation around that. So if we are able to facilitate that, that would be a positive way forward. Thank you, Councillor. Who had the light on first? Was it Councillor Erkins?
Can I just ask through you, Madam Chair, to Manager Leanne, so if they have bookings for the cemetery, I don't want to offend anyone, but so when you have a funeral for somebody, they buy their plot of land. So do they buy that through that church group? I just wonder, so if they've got bookings, whether that is financially a viable, whether they're, it pays its way sort of thing, so they're not dying quick enough to continue to, with all due respect to, families and that who have, people buried there. I just see sometimes if it's left to an organisation who possibly aging going to go, what happens to that cemetery and those people that are buried there? As a sign, I mean, being respectful, we wouldn't want to see that just fall into, disrepair and nobody looking after it. So, probably councillor, your idea of consulting with the groups there, because you know, I know there are a few cemeteries in the area. There's that one at Bowie. You know, so I just didn't know how that. It's really just inquiry. I didn't know how it worked. I wouldn't like to see it just fall into disrepair and it'd be a, you know, tumbled down old graveyard that nobody looks after because their committee are, you know, all in there. But and I do see the church having some value to some people. I mean, you know, tourism there's more and more tourists around, whether it has any potential to be converted to a house. There's a number of old churches around that are, so, you know, just giving a little bit of weight to Councillor Potter's, whether it's possible to split that off, maybe one of the things, and council maintain the church, the graveyard, and with the money that's collected in the sale to do that or something. I don't know.
So thank you, Councillor Erkins. Is it possible to put a dot point, or maybe move an amendment, just a dot point that we negotiate with the local community around that? Because I am the same. I agree with Councillor Erkins. I'd hate to see it just fall into state of disrepair and just no one take ownership of it. So I think it's worth having that conversation. So can we just put a dot point that council talk to the local community groups around with outlining their options and possible future long-term plans for the cemetery. It's probably more the cemetery than the building that would be of concern. Councillor Shoemaker?
Yeah, I don't disagree with the sentiment, and I'm not sure though that it should be council having the discussions. I actually think it's the St. Faith Anglican Church. Like, if they've run church services in the area, if people have invested, I don't doubt local people probably turned up and built that church. It's a beautiful building when you really look at the photos, and you know, if they've established a church in the area, I think in 1917 was when I read, which is, you know, First World War. It's pretty significant, the history there, and I don't think they should just wash their hands of that in the Mondial community. Certainly no, our council wouldn't do that. So I think it's actually us going back to the church, asking them to engage in some community consultation about this matter, whether the church could be relocated to another, you know, community-owned facility at the church's expense. You know, might actually offer something to the Mondial community. I don't know if that's something that they should talk to the community about. Just with the cemetery, my only thinking is there a strategy, like with our cemeteries in the area, do we actually have enough land for the future of our cemeteries? Is this worth consideration? You know, I know some cemeteries are, you know, landlocked, and maybe for that longer term planning, while we might not need it today, for that longer term planning, it's probably a very nice location there next to that rural land. I don't know whether it's worth exploring through that lens. My question.
So, Manager Darrell?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. I think where we're at with our cemetery capacities, you know, we really need to do some master planning of you know, what we've got, where we've got it, what capacity's left, because I know even at Tubinga, you know, there's some, you know, some decisions need to be made there around, you know, what the next 5-10 years looks like there. So so that's part of a bigger package, I guess, to sort of do some sort of assessment of, you know, what we actually do have available out there.
Thank you. Okay, so that's we've just changed the wording that council encouraged St. Faith Anglican Church to engage with local community groups, outlining their options and future long-term plans for the cemetery. Are you happy that we changed it to that? Because
probably for the church and the cemetery, like for the church and the cemetery.
And the cemetery.
Because I think potentially they could be split or separate I don't know, I haven't had involvement in churches and cemeteries before, but yeah, I can see there may be an opportunity. I think them gifting us the land is the easy option for the church. I think sort of it helps the church just sort of wash their hands of it and walk away from the Wandjil community, and I don't support that. I think they were a part of the history too. Clearly, community came together and created a church and a group here, and clearly still today, as you've said, Councillor Duff, people are turning up and maintaining the facility. I don't think the church should just walk away from this. I think giving it to council would be the easy option. I think they need to have more conversations with the community, and through that, I don't know, maybe through some of that longer term planning, maybe it's not a hard no, maybe it's a, we're doing some work and we'll come back to you at some point. But I can see, you know, I agree with the sentiment Councillor Erkinson, Councillor Potter and Councillor Duff have exchanged, that people have put their loved ones to rest here, and something does need to be considered for that future.
Thank you. So I just know in Proston, the Anglican Church, a similar thing. It's heritage listed. They just I went to and negotiated with the bishop in Toowoomba because the Proston community were really keen, and they wanted to make the heritage listed church into an information centre. It's right located there, and then they wanted the little building beside that to be for the men's shed. And the Anglican Church just put it on them, deconsecrated the church, spent $150,000 to removing a body that was underneath the church that was the bloke who had asked who donated the land wanted to be buried under the church. They spent $150,000 removing the body. Then they sold the building and also the little shed with no negotiations with the community. So I'm just a bit concerned that something like this would happen because the church sees it differently, and I say that with the greatest respect, but they're sort of like, they're a big organisation. They don't get down onto that community level. They're more, you know, this is a commercial decision. I agree that Councillor Schumacher, what she's saying is yes, they think that was the better option, but they'll be looking more at a commercial, you know, let's deconsecrate, because that seems to be the way that they operate, and they did that with the Anglican Church in Proston. So just that's why I'm like, oh, you know, maybe we need to handle it a little bit delicately. So that's why I'm pretty keen to see something happening around that local community groups so that they know what's going to happen rather than suddenly it all just gets left like that.
So, through you, Chairs, so what you're saying is that you support, and I fully support the cemetery side of things. I have no inclination to take on that building as far as council goes. Absolutely none whatsoever. I can't see the benefit in it. I think, like the other councillors have said, it should some responsibility should fall on the church. And I can back up what you've said, Councillor Duff, in 2 churches being sold as now become residents in Maidenwell. There was a lot of discontent as far as churchgoers go. One gentleman said that he would have moved it from where it was if they were able to, and it was not even given consideration because he was going to take it and continue it on as a church, and they did not want any part of it. So therefore they just sold the church clean out from underneath the community. So they won't play any part in this. You've got your best offer right on the table now, wanting to give it to us to take it on. So I am fully supportive of doing something with that cemetery, 100%, but absolutely no inclination to do anything as far as council taking on the maintenance and ownership of that church, because we've all said it, we've all heard it before, our budget's tight and we just don't need another asset sitting on our register.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Jones. Councillor Henson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for some history, the one out at Bonaire, owned by a particular church group, and as Councillor Jones has alluded to, there was a hall there, a community hall, beautiful big hall, and there was a fairly substantial church there as well. The church came in and just picked that church up and shifted it, and then several years later did exactly the same thing with the community hall. So now there's only a cemetery there. Sentiment's the same as Councillor Jones. If that is a supposed historical or heritage, there should be someone in the Heritage Association taking it on, not the council, because we have enough things heritage listed that we are seriously struggling with. But the cemetery, yes, but the church, they're the ones that need to do something with that, not us.
Thank you, Councillor Henson. Councillor Shoemaker.
I'm wondering, Councillor Duff, just from that conversation and from your experience, whether we shouldn't maybe amend this motion, just that, you know, that we're open to conversations about the cemetery. Like, hearing your feedback, I'm really worried, actually, if we go back and say no, that, you know, from your experience and from others, clearly churches have a lot of money. They've pulled churches down before. I cannot believe they moved.
Yep.
That's just unbelievable.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know what the right wording is. I don't disagree that we can't take the building on. That's not something that we're really open to. There may be another community group in the area that if this church group spoke to them, like you've said, Councillor Duff, you know, what a shame, Protestant group willing to take it on and they didn't listen.
No.
I don't know what the right words of the motion are, but I think we're all in agreement that the cemetery really is something that should be kept. The church, however, question mark. I do find it really concerning that churches don't take more ownership over their history and the people who turned up and built these places of worship. It really is quite disappointing. I don't know what your thoughts are, Councillor Duff, but maybe the motion needs to represent that we're open to conversations about the long term of the cemetery, but that we don't have the capacity to take on the building in the church, and whether we recommend to the church, maybe you're able to help us here, CEO Mark, so we don't end up in trouble, that they talk to a local community group around, you know, the future of that building.
Given the discussion, I'd probably prefer to leave it lay on the table till we get the wording right. I actually agree with the original resolution, and then if that we wouldn't take it on, we'd need to consider planning. You don't even know if you could subdivide the block like legally. There's without trying to sound like the bureaucrat in the room, but what it is. So if we left this one sit, and then we can come back to you guys with some, and we might be able to make some overtures to the church. Regrettably, my personal dealing through church going with the church in this space is it's all about the real estate and the return on the dollar. So, and certainly I'm very well aware of the Protestant and poor old mate just there. No, he wasn't going to stand in the way of them disposing of the asset, and that's been repeated without speaking ill, but there's been practical examples of that. I'm sure we could all probably give where that's been. If there's consecrated ground, we'll just shift her and dispose of the asset. So we're probably best to not to try and do the wording of this one on the run and just leave him lay and we'll bring him back, if you don't mind.
So would you like to move a procedural motion?
I'll move a procedural motion that matter lay on the table.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Seconded, Councillor Henson. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. So we're moving on to questions on notice, item 15.1 on page 130. The following question on notice was received from Councillor Erkins. Is there potential for a workshop with councillors to discuss the local laws as part of the consultation program? Councillor Erkins, are you happy with the response? So would you move the recommendation that the response to the question be received and noted? Someone to second that? Councillor Shoemaker, all those in favour? Against? Carried. The second question on notice is 15.2, question on notice tour of waste facilities. The following question on notice was received from Councillor Shoemaker. Can we organise a tour of the waste facilities within the South Burnett? Councillor Shoemaker, are you happy with the response?
Yeah, and just want to thank the team. I think the tour would be really valuable, so thank you. At this stage of that waste strategy planning, I think it's really important.
So would you like to move the recommendation?
I'll move that.
Someone to second that? Councillor Henson, all those in favour? Against? Carried. The next question on notice is the baiting program. Following question on notice was received from Councillor Henson. Has councillors coordinated has council coordinated the baiting program set for September with South Burnet's neighbouring councils? Are you happy with the response, Councillor Henson?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and happy to move that be received.
Someone to second that? Councillor Potter. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Question on notice, Crofton Street, Blackbutt. The following question on notice was received from Councillor Shoemaker. Is the Crofton Street, Blackbutt site suitable for a social or affordable housing project? Councillor Shoemaker, are you happy with the response?
Yes, thank you for clarifying this. Clearly, we don't own any land in the Crofton Street area suitable for this, so this came out of a conversation that we're having, so it's good to have clarity of that. Thank you. Happy to move.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Someone to second that? Councillor Potter. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. The final question on notice is... No, that's not the final one. Actually, there's another question on notice, replacement program for plants in garden beds. Is there a replacement program for plants in garden beds when they reach a certain age? What budget do we allocate to replace the plantings, and is it enough? That was asked by Councillor Shoemaker. Are you happy with the response?
Yes, this came up when the Governor was coming to visit Wondai, and we were looking at just the Wondai garden beds in isolation, so really do appreciate the extra clarity here. I can see we use a combination of annual and pre-annual plants, and understand that there'll be more service level planning discussions through as we look at our regional park strategy and future plans. So no, really appreciate the response and the work that's gone into all of the gardens across the region over this past period.
So that's been moved by Councillor Shoemaker, seconded by Councillor Henson. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 15.5, question on notice, planter boxes. This was also asked by Councillor Shoemaker. Are there any other towns that require a similar freshen up across the region? Councillor Shoemaker, are you happy with the response?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Duff. I think it shows that, level of service is being rolled out, and I just wanted to make sure that those works weren't just happening in isolation in one diet. So it's a wonderful response. Thank you.
Thank you. Someone to second that? Councillor Potter. All those in favour? Against? Carried. The final question on notice is 15.7. Are there any FRRR disaster funding options for hall repairs, evacuation centres, and what council facilities are available? Councillor Shoemaker, are you happy with that response?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Duff, and just wanted to thank the team for investigating this. Certainly recognise the role halls play in our community, and I think it's always important we try to leverage as much funding as there is available to keep them maintained and working and functioning, particularly in times of disaster. So it's great to read in the report that our committee will be sharing some of this information about the FRRR grants with all committees across the South Burnett. So thank you for that work. I think that's really great.
You're happy to move that, Councillor
Happy
Shoemaker?
to move that.
Someone to second that? Councillor Erkins, all those in favour? Against? Carried. That ends the meeting. Thank you everyone for attending, and have a great rest of the day.